me. I really got to get an intro or something going on. I'll probably will eventually. You can actually see me this time. They can't see me, but you guys can see me because you guys are special. Anyway, or unfortunate, I guess. I don't know, whatever. We have our lovely guests. Welcome to our, I guess I'm calling this crossover. These are our lovely guests today. We are on part 2 of our 100 questions for atheists. We are on question 30. And can our panel introduce ourselves?
Absolutely. Well, I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. I have a YouTube page called The Dapper Dino. I do mostly creationists debunking. I do some paleontology stuff. I just had an episode about Star Trek. So if you like Star Trek and you want to see me criticize one of the most beloved episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, you can do that. And also, sometimes I do some collaborations with various other content creators, like our next panel member.
Oh God, is that me? I think that might be me. Yes, I am Erica. I do. Hold on, I was pulling up Dapper's thing or rather our chat in the background so I can see what the chat says. Yes, I am Erica. I go by Gutsick Gibbon on YouTube. I do primates. Hold on, let me get my rhesus macaque skull so that I can show that, you know, when you have a skull of something, that makes you an official. I do primates and primatology stuff. And I love being here. I love these kinds of questions. I'm ready to have a good time. That's
awesome.
your cue, Unholy Roast.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I forgot to unmute myself. I am the Unholy Roast, and I'm clearly a professional at all of this. I am an agnostic atheist, and I make, different content on YouTube. Right now I'm doing Coronaverse, basically talking to a bunch of different people with their experience right now, just because it's a difficult time, and I want people to be able to hear a bunch of different ideas on how to improve their situation and just feel like they're validated in their struggles. So that's my current pet project.
That's actually pretty awesome of you to do. I have a special announcement and surprise for everybody at the end of the stream. So stick around to the very end. I'm gonna sneeze. No. Anyway. Why?
Failing to sneeze is worse than sneezing. I hate that.
Yeah, it really is. It's like can we say this? It's like blue balls for your nose. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like blue
kinda.
balls for my nose. Oh my goodness. Okay. Anyway, I have a special surprise for you guys at the end of the stream that will hopefully, one, give you guys something to do during this time, as well as maybe some more entertainment in the future. And hopefully you guys like it. It's a super secret surprise. So you gotta hold on to the end.
I don't even know what it is.
I don't know what it is either. Wow, I'm intrigued. Now I must know.
Oh, my volume is a little low. I will crank myself up a teeny tiny little baby bit. And you guys can let me know if I've gotten too loud. Hopefully that's good. Hopefully that is a little bit better. No, I get blue balled all the time. I'm not gonna lie. That happens to me regularly.
I am sorry to hear that.
No, people set up an expectation and then they just leave me like. All right. So let me just close this out, close that out, and we've got our questions. Are you ready?
I couldn't possibly be more ready than I currently am.
Whoops. Glorious. All right. Boop, 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 boop. I'm gonna have to move myself because that's the way it is now. There we go. And there it is. All right, can you guys see it?
I can't see it.
All right,
I couldn't actually see it last time, so I had to pull it up in the side, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm not keeping up with the rest of the gang." But this time, it's right there. Yeah, I was trying to time my reactions. I was like, "When are they gonna see it? Am I the first one to see it?"
Oh no.
Erica, the technical genius.
Yeah, that's what I'm known for.
Alright. Sorry for the minor adjustments of...
At least now you know how to stream to YouTube if you want to.
Hey, thanks to you, I know. Here I am, a both gentle and modern ape, and I had to be taught by a theropod.
Ooh, feels bad, man. Today we've got, we're still not going hard on the alcohol this time. That'll be for the finale. So when we do the third episode, which will hopefully wrap this up we will we'll be good to go on that end.
If memory serves, the last third is the most excruciating. So.
Oh,
well,
glorious.
we'll need it.
Yeah,
I
we'll
don't know.
definitely need it then, because this has already been pretty bad.
Unholy
It's
Roast is gonna have to switch to Irish coffee.
I may or may not was planning on making White Russians.
Ooh.
That'd be nice.
Okay, so I will read the rules for us again. We are currently at question 30, but for anybody who has not seen part 1, these are the rules. This is how this video works. Every 6 seconds, the video will move into another question. You can obviously speed up or slow down this video in the video settings if you wish. In the description, there will be a 1 to 100 numbered list that is blank. You can copy and paste this into your comment and fill in the questions as they appear on screen. If you would like to pass on any of the questions, simply write pass in the empty field so I know you didn't just forget. If you would like, you can make your own video responding to these questions. I'm curious to see what your responses to these questions are going to be. Good luck. So the link to this video is in the description if you would like to go and answer these questions and leave a comment for them. By all means, they're asking you to. I did see that some people went over and like such as Mr. Serious went over and answered some of the questions, or answered all of the questions actually. So they're getting a response, which is fantastic. Failed in Engineering for 5 says, "Will pop in, out, keep up the amazing work, love y'all."
Oh, thank you.
With a heart.
Oh yes, the heart emoji is what seals the deal. If you ever want to sound sincere, that is what you do.
Yep. Send that bitch a smiley face. Bitches love smiley faces.
If you want to make it a little bit mysterious and feisty, you can also add the little kissing face emoji. That one always makes me, I just wonder for more. I'm like, ooh, what are the intentions?
My favorite one is the angry smiley face with the bracket, like the hard bracket, not the soft bracket, not the curve.
Yeah. That one is like that one's like if an AI tried to smile.
yeah, and I like that it's like it doesn't get replaced by anything, and it looks kind of angry. Like it looks like it's up to something.
It does. It definitely does look like it's up to something. I would 9 out of 10 not trust.
I also like to, instead of using the bracket, sometimes I'll use that one that's just a straight line. So because it still looks like old school emojis, and I miss the old school emojis.
Almost nothing can beat like the weight of the emotion that is portrayed by the simple like colon smiley though, or like close parenthesis, the classic.
Yeah, the classic, or the upside down one.
Yeah, it can mean
upside down one is awesome.
Glorious. All right, let's get started. Ready? I need to jump to question 30. As we left off, the last question we answered was, have you ever observed evolution?
The answer is basically yes.
Yes.
There you go.
31, here we go.
Oh god.
I forgot there's music.
Yeah, me too.
It's on time this time though. That's nice. Oh.
Would you like to read the question out loud?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, question number 31. Do you believe in abiogenesis, panspermia, or creation? So for those of you out there who are wondering, abiogenesis would be life from chemical evolution here on planet Earth, and panspermia would be Earth being seeded by life from somewhere else. You can imagine it being like, they call it panspermia because it's like the asteroid would be like the little sperm, and of course the Earth is the egg. And then creation, for those of you who maybe missed the first episode, we are specifically talking about the young Earth creationist Judeo-Christian God here. So
special creation.
Yes.
I do want to point out real quick that the analogy is supposed to be that the asteroid is a seed because it's from the Greek for seed. It's a less directly sexual analogy than that one. The Earth is supposed to be the soil.
Dapper, that's the lame version.
I know, but my studies in Greek compel me to point out the difference.
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
Okay, who wants to go first on this one? I mean...
Oh, yeah, I'll go. The answer is yes.
Oh.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's actually the route I was gonna take. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I mean, it's gotta be something. Well, it's got to be something. I don't happen to know what exactly happens. So yes, I believe in abiogenesis, panspermia, or creation. Those seem like the options available to me, and I think one of them is probably right.
Oh,
I
no,
think
okay,
that-
I see what you're saying. I see the sassiness coming through there.
Yeah, that's the sassy dapper doesn't want to show his cards.
Well, it's not just that I don't want to show my cards. I don't have really good evidence for any of them. There are options for abiogenesis. Creation, I don't even know how to assess it because it doesn't make any predictions or claims or anything. So all I can do is just say, well, it's an idea, I guess. I don't know. And panspermia, again, I don't really have any ways to assess it. There have been some studies that look promising. So since I don't have the expertise to assess any of them, I just go with, yeah, something.
Are there more? Aren't there more than one theory wrapped up in abiogenesis? Also, like,
Yes.
is there more than one idea within just that one? Like, creation that's like a lot of different creations that you could or could not believe in. So I'm not sure. This seems like the question isn't very well worded.
Everyone be shocked.
Yeah, this really snuck up on us, huh? I will come forward and give a firm answer. I do accept abiogenesis. I don't, at least from the prospect of being either RNA world or metabolism first. I don't have a problem with something being involved and spurring that or whatever. Like Dapper said, I don't think that would be something that would be necessarily testable. I don't know how you would know one way or another if that did happen. But I think we have some really solid evidence from stromatolites and laboratory experiments that life in a stepwise process can emerge from chemical evolution. Panspermia, I'm not convinced. Could be, don't know for sure, not convinced. And creation, I guess you could lump into a version of abiogenesis, but certainly not ex nihilo.
Right.
And
and honestly, my answer is similar because I think the most likely is just abiogenesis on this planet. But I mean, it could have happened somewhere else. Panspermia has a possibility, but I don't have any issue against abiogenesis because there is a lot that goes into it, but we've seen a lot of really fascinating work in that discussion. And I don't know for sure. I'm always down to learn more, and I feel like we need to learn a lot more about abiogenesis.
Oh, yeah.
Though I feel like it's the most likely.
Oh yeah, there was a really cool paper that came out in the past couple of years that suggested that clays, like actual slabs of clay, in the ground, could have actually assisted in the self-assembly of RNA particles, just because the way that they kind of adhere to the clay lends itself to self-organization. It's very weird and very interesting, but I will be the first one to say we don't know as nearly as much as we could know about abiogenesis or panspermia.
Which is awesome. Like, let's find out more.
Yeah, it's
I love that whole field. It's fascinating.
Very cool stuff, absolutely.
I guess it's also possible that you could have a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B with panspermia and abiogenesis, couldn't you? Couldn't you have abiogenesis happening somewhere else and
definitely.
then transferring from point A to point B?
You could actually, theoretically, I guess hypothetically, you could have all three of these things involved. Yeah, so it's, it's not, none of these things have to clash with each other, and that is so classic of like YEC, is that it's all got to be, it's one versus the other. No, not necessarily.
Well, in an interesting note, they found some ribose in a asteroid not that long ago, and so it was because ribose is a notoriously short-lived sugar, and so there's always been this question of how do you get sufficient ribose to actually get RNA, because that's you need ribose to make ribonucleic acid. That's one of the big parts there, but it turns out that apparently ribose can both form and persist in areas where it is well protected from solar radiation, and that includes asteroids. So it's possible that some of the ingredients that were needed for abiogenesis were seeded from space in a kind of combination deal.
Yeah, it is some cool stuff.
I guess it's also, you could run into... I don't know. Chemo makes a good point that says panspermia, semen of God. Maybe. I think what we basically are coming down to is that we don't really have enough information to definitively say it was 1, 2, or 3. We may think this one is more likely, but we don't have enough definitive answer yet, and the discussion is interesting, so keep researching it and have more discussion on it.
Seriously.
I will say the semen of God is basically one of the creation myths in ancient Egypt. So
yes, it is. Yep. Yes, it is.
Like literally. So
next question.
Maybe
it is. Maybe the Egyptians were correct.
Maybe.
All right. What's 32?
Question 32. If you believe in abiogenesis or panspermia, where is your evidence?
No, we already covered this.
We're back to giving this guy way too much credit.
Yeah.
Like, we should have learned over the 2
hours.
hours of last time.
Yeah, we really walked right into that one, actually. That we were like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty good question. Then we're like, oh well, shit.
I mean, if it follows the rule, the next one is going to be, why do you hate creation?
No, that yeah.
Do you
actually,
wanna?
yeah.
Let's see.
I want to see.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Better question.
Yeah.
33. What was the first life form?
Oh man, I mean, it's going to be something ridiculously similar. It's going to be something where if you've got a nice little test tube and you pop in RNA, proteins, and a phospholipid bilayer, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's about as simple as you can get and still be classified as like alive.
Yeah.
Because then it can self-replicate, it can move about, all of those things.
Yeah, it's going to be super non-impressive. It's going to be like, that's it. Yeah, the basic unit, essentially.
To some extent, it's going to depend on exactly what your qualification for life is.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What do you mean by a life form? Do you mean like a mammal? Like, are you asking like what was the first mammal? What is your classification for life? Because I would probably guarantee that this person is not using the scientific definition of what could be at bare bones minimum considered life. I think life by usually the creation terms, it means it has to be something that has a soul almost.
Well, there is that weird thing where creationists seem to agree that plants are alive, but then disagree that they die. And I'm like, well, what's a plant then? So,
right.
Even with creationism, like, would the first animal, would the origin of metazoa be the origin of life according to a creationist? I don't know, because they also use words like, oh, you can kill bacteria, but then they excuse that away when you talk about death before the flood, because things like, even if their ideas were right about everything being vegetarian, plants and microbes would have had to be dying. I'm like, well, that doesn't count. Well,
why not? Yeah, why don't?
And basically the answer is because they don't breathe with lungs, apparently.
They've got.
Is the question then, what was the first life form, like including something that breathed with lungs?
Well, that would be some primitive fish way back in like the Devonian.
Well, even then though, they consider fish alive, so it would have to be like your first, your first like agnathan? Like seriously, I think they really fall into the category of like, we can have life, like classification of life in biology, but that's not the same thing as the one that's referenced like in Genesis, which is like the Hebrews' conception of life.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, cool. Well, then why can't you go with the whole thing where it's like the Hebrews' conception of the earth was that it was probably quite flat, like, you know what I mean?
And had pillars and a dome.
Yeah, exactly. But they've got.
Did it also sit on top of a turtle?
Not that I know of. There is some indication that they had. There's this widespread myth that occurs all through North Africa, the Middle East, into Central Asia, and all through Europe, of the chaos dragon or the chaos serpent that coils around the bottom of the world. And there's indication that a leviathan essentially started out as being more or less identical to that.
Well, it had a name. Its name is Rahab. Like the Hebrews actually had a name for the Leviathan, and it's referenced like later on after Job. It's referenced in some other books as well, by the name Rahab, which means one who coils. Like the name Rahab is literally one who coils. And apparently there used to be like a version of the creation story that. And this is, I guess, I don't have any of the literature on this, so don't ask. I heard it on Trade the Explainer's channel, actually. But that covered kind of the original story where at the dawn of time, at the dawn of creation, God like dukes it out with Rahab, right? And like pummels Rahab, and then of course, very similar to the Mesopotamian story, spreads out Rahab's skin and creates the earth from that.
Yeah, and you get similar references to things like Nidover and
Ouroboros, which eats the two serpents eating each other's tail, and then the one that goes at the center.
Yeah, the Ouroboros, right?
You even get Apep in Egyptian mythology, who's a giant serpent in the underworld that the sun god has to battle off through his nightly travels through the underworld until he can get back to sunrise.
Yeah.
To travel on the solar barge. Yeah.
So I think
you get that same kind of thing all over the place.
So I think the answer to this one is info. Like, we're not sure what you mean when you're asking for what kind of life form, because we can probably explain up to a certain point, but we're not sure what you're asking for. Next question?
Yes.
Next question.
Where did the first life form come from?
Oh my god.
I mean,
Isn't that
I
the
feel like
same
that's the
question?
same.
It's the same question. The answer, if we're talking about like in biology, chemical evolution, life emerged from chemical evolution. But you know, I mean, if we want to, have that same conversation again, we certainly
I think he might actually be asking for a geographical location.
Oh, like the actual location.
I think he might want it happened in like West Africa, in what's now like Gambia or something.
How could we possibly know that?
I don't know, but it's the only thing I can think of that he means that is different from his other questions, and so I'm sort of giving him both more and less credit.
Mr. Series says from a McDonald's Happy Meal. I mean, I think Dapper's giving him too much credit. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a rehash. Next
is the same question.
Yeah.
Next.
Yes.
Question 35. Could the first life form reproduce on its own? It would have to, depending
it would
on the
have
union
to
by
if
life.
it. Right. I mean, I guess that's kind of a qualification of life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know of any formal definition for life that doesn't include the ability to reproduce either asexually or at least sexually. Like, and almost certainly would have been asexually in the first life form. I mean, come on. But yeah, the answer is yes.
We're just going with yes?
I mean, I don't think there's much else to say about it. Unless it's reproducing, it's not a life form. So
right, it's tied up in the actual definition of what is life. So this is
Well, also, if we're going with strict biology, like you know, we've all kind of said here, it has to be able to reproduce. That's one of the definitions of life.
It's like asking, was the first ice cube made out of H2O? Well, I mean, otherwise it wasn't the first ice cube. And what do you want?
Exactly. Right. And there's some really interesting papers out there that cover like how you've almost got this weird bridged gap where you've got chemicals that are capable under certain conditions of replicating themselves so long as all of the ingredients are available. So it's sort of like almost like a chain reaction. I would imagine that it would be quite similar for the first life form using RNA. Because RNA follows the rules aren't that complicated.
Yeah, the only thing that I can see being potentially an issue with this question is that we didn't really understand what they meant last time they were talking about life. So without that qualifier, like in biology, the answer is yes, but depending on what you mean by life based on the previous question, we might need more details. So that answer is liable to change if you are if you're defining life differently than that.
Agreed, absolutely.
So let's even just say that life didn't have this qualification of it can reproduce. Fine, let's say that there was something that didn't have that quality, then we wouldn't see anything about it now.
Yeah,
so
it would either be that old or non-existent. So it would either be something that started living, doesn't reproduce, but persists, or is gone. And has been for a very long time.
And then something else that could reproduce actually came about, and that's what we saw.
Yes, agreed.
All right, moving on. Did the first life form have DNA?
Almost certainly not. No.
Yep.
Oh, that was easy. Next question.
Woo.
Did the first life form seek out food, or did it use photosynthesis?
As far as I know, we're looking at the reigning hypothesis being that the location was hydrothermal dense.
Yeah.
So therefore, it would be more of like a chemophile, I guess you would say. It would be using chemicals, maybe methanogenic. We don't know. But so the answer is neither, right?
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say photosynthesis is kind of complex and kind of a little bit more advanced than we would expect from the first life form, right?
Definitely.
And there are still chemosynthetic and radiotrophic life forms on Earth. That's still a thing that happens.
Obviously, it must have been that two life forms started existing simultaneously at the same time, and one was a vagina and one was a penis, and when they fell in love with each other...
And then they started eating each other afterwards because they needed food.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, both of them simultaneously sought out food and did photosynthesis.
Is somebody suggesting to me that they do not like to have their penis eaten?
Literally? Yeah, I'll pass.
I refuse to comment on that.
Hey, listen, people in the Bible apparently liked dudes with really large schlongs related to horses, so imagine how they would respond to a dinosaur.
Oh.
And don't forget the emissions like a donkey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yay, the Bible.
There goes our monetization. It's fine.
Oh yeah, that was out the window.
I mean, I'm the one who brought it up. I can't really complain.
You didn't get bombed with all sorts of crazy stories about all sorts of demonetizable stuff like I did.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh god. Oh god.
If anybody hasn't seen it, I definitely recommend going and checking out Dapper's last live stream. Not video, live stream. My god.
I genuinely don't think a video has been monetized or demonetized by so many different things simultaneously.
All within like the span of 30 seconds out of nowhere.
It was exponential. It kept getting worse. Like the things kept getting wackier and wackier. I was like, what is going on?
Both you and I just walked away at one point, Erica. At different times, but both of us had to just leave.
I had to take a moment. I had to take a moment, dude.
Me too.
I could not even fathom. Oh god, yes, please, everyone in the chat, if you really want a trip, I mean, it's definitely a trip.
It starts about maybe
get high and listen to it.
A third
of
the way through or so. Yeah, it's oof. All right, I think we should get level question 38.
Are viruses alive?
I tend to say no.
What
Question.
What does this matter?
Yeah, why is it relevant to the conference? I don't know. Ask anybody. No one really knows. I think the current answer is that life is a gradient. Like it's no longer black and white, right? Like something can maybe
It's not a
be...
rock and a monkey.
Yeah, it's maybe. We don't know. I mean, I guess we can go back to the earlier thing. It depends on your definition of alive.
Right. Well, so I tend to say no, and it's because I have a definition I use as my sort of operating definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, life is a distinct chemical system that maintains an internal thermodynamic equilibrium with its environment, and which is capable of reproducing, and which, as a population, can undergo evolution.
So
viruses do not meet the thermodynamic disequilibrium qualification, so they're not alive.
If I'm trying to think of this, knowing what he's trying to go for here, honestly, my thought is that no, because viruses can't really survive without something else. So, like it couldn't be one of the first life forms to have arisen because it wouldn't really be able to do anything on its own. Maybe that's
the
where
problem,
he's
like
trying
tapeworms.
Yeah, I'm trying to give him some credit here. Maybe that's the the route they're taking. I don't know. So in regards to what I think they might be going for, no, they're not alive. They couldn't be like the first life form.
Yeah, if the suggestion is that this is a stepping stone, I would agree. I would not. I mean, if anything, we're looking at a separate emergence of what would become viruses.
Right.
I don't know. It's a good question, but I don't think it's entirely good.
I believe most hypotheses have the idea that viruses are in some way derived from living organisms.
Yes, and is it possible that it's like kind of they're in between being considered not like, so if they were given if they're given like the proper proteins in the right circumstances, they can get to the point where you would consider them 100% alive, but right now they're just not quite at that point?
Well, they don't really have the genetics to make use of any proteins other than things like, reverse transcriptase or the coding for their
or they become part
their
of
protein shells.
something that is alive.
Yeah,
They can't do that.
They persist just because of their sheer numbers. Like,
Right.
you know, if like, let's say you could theoretically wipe out every virus, which you would not want to do, but let's say you could do it, would viruses reemerge? And if they did, how fast would it take? Like, how long would it take? Because that would be an interesting question, right? Like, whether or not they emerged in a separate sort of pseudo abiogenesis, or rather were they derived like from living things, like you said earlier. I don't know nearly enough about viruses to be able to answer this question very well, though.
The evil Scotsman is asking about the T virus. Is the T virus alive?
Let's just go with yes, because it seems to make really intelligent decisions about what to do after infecting some life form.
If you
So
look
I'm
at the
just gonna go with
new
yes.
Resident Evil, the T virus isn't just a virus anymore. It's actually a parasite.
Well, then why are they calling it the T virus?
Because the T virus was the original, and now it's like it's kind of, I guess the virus got into something, and now it's a parasite.
Goddamn retcons.
Right?
Classic.
All right, next question. Well, that's an assumption.
Well, I mean,
They didn't ask
it
us
is an
about that
assumption.
earlier.
Right, but I do accept the Big Bang Theory, so I mean, it's a fair assumption, I guess.
Yeah.
I would get. I mean, I guess.
I
The
would
thing
say
is,
it's a fair assumption if they hadn't previously been asking everything individually along the way.
Yeah.
That's true.
it definitely breaks our kind of pattern here.
Well, I mean, to actually answer the question, I mean, it's things like, you know, the strong correlation between redshift and distance, the microwave background radiation, observed just increase in, well, I mean, I guess observed, you know, universal expansion is the same thing as the redshift thing, but we also have the physics that backs it up. So Einstein's field equations require that the universe either collapse or expand. So
Right.
there isn't really an option for it to do neither.
There's things such as baryonic acoustic distribution, I think is the term.
Yep, that's another good one. That's a pretty obscure one, but
Heyo.
yeah, there's the idea.
If we're dealing with it in like a classic theory sense, I think that if it's not specifically what's sort of taught right now, it's probably something quite similar. Where you've kind of got this. Oh God, the thing is I hate talking about the Big Bang Theory because I inevitably start like tripping over my words with regard to like when time begins, you know,
Everyone
and
does.
all that stuff.
Like
Because it's
T
just
zero.
it's so like mind-warpingly insane. Like I read somewhere that we actually don't have any information about like the moment of the Big Bang. We have like 0.0000 something seconds
Right.
after, right?
Yeah,
So
the Planck time.
yeah, so and that blows my mind too. This stuff is like way over my head whenever I try to look into it. But to my knowledge, our current paradigm fits quite well with the data we have, which is why the model is proposed. You know, because it's parsimonious with what we see. I know there's been some sort of question about some of the minutia, but I don't think that necessarily impacts the general model.
Yeah, if your general model is the universe a long time ago was much more compact and much hotter, and it is currently expanding to become less hot and less compact, I mean, that's just happening right now.
My brain kind of
Right.
does this thing. It does, like, the way I look at it is that, as far as I'm concerned, it's essentially all inevitable, because as soon as we have no reference for T being zero. Now, I'm straight up fine to be wrong about this entirely because I'm a layman, so please correct me if I'm just full of shit right now. But because it's virtually impossible for the human mind to just wrap around the concept of 1, infinity, and 2, 0 for time, it's not really something that we have the tools right now to be able to actively describe so we can understand it very well. But at the same time, because there's no relative, everything is relative, right? Size is relative to whatever you can compare it to, and with no other universe to compare our size to, not only is our current universe infinitely large, but it's also infinitely small at the same time.
Oh no, we've got a really, really big universe.
So, right, but because I'm talking about as a whole, we don't know how large our universe is outside of what we experience relative to us. So relative to other universes, it could be infinitely small.
Well,
right?
Actually, one of the problems is we don't know how big the universe is. We just know how
right,
big the
exactly.
observable one is. And that's more of a function of time than of the actual extent of the universe.
At the same time, we have no idea. Like, another thing that blows my mind is like, all right, the universe is constantly expanding. And I had this conversation with Luke several weeks ago. And I was like, I was like, what is this expanding into? And he's like, there's no into. And I was like, what do you mean there's no into?
Right.
But it's just hard. I mean, I get it conceptually, kind of, but whenever I start thinking too much about it, I'm like, all right, so, and that's where like the whole
it starts being like, is that beyond me? Yeah.
Yeah, and like, is it that, I don't know, is there a sort of reverse of, like, I know the big crunch is also something that has been suggested, but I don't know. I don't think it's nearly as accepted as like heat death.
Yeah. So go ahead, not all here.
Yeah, thank you. And it's not as accepted right now because we've seen that the expansion of space is actually accelerating.
Right.
And so a big crunch seems unlikely because from what we've seen, things just keep expanding and keep expanding and keep expanding.
Right.
And with entropy working eventually, and we're talking magnitudes of time that are ridiculous and completely beyond our ability to grasp. Yeah, but eventually the energy level will be zero because everything will be uniform.
Well, the energy gradient will be zero. There will be plenty of energy.
The way my brain works
but out of reach.
The way my brain works though is that you could have, if you reach essentially heat death, and everything is so far out that it's never going to interact with another one again. You know what you get again? Everything restarts. Like there's with enough time, it'd be inevitable. It would have to. Not that you necessarily get the same situation, but you know what I mean.
I start thinking in the same way. Like, it's like, all right, if you're dealing with infinite time, is everything supposing that the materials are available, not inevitable?
Right. Exactly. It almost has to be.
I mean, maybe there's more factors at play that I'm just not aware of. Chat's probably gonna like absolutely roast us for not knowing this stuff, because I certainly don't.
Hopefully. Then we can learn.
Hey,
Helios for 5 says T-Virus chooses to reproduce via biting things that are much faster than it. If you think this is that is a great reproduction method, go ahead and bite a squirrel.
But see, the thing is, squirrels are much better at sensing slow-moving threats than humans are. Humans are dumb. They'll stand in a room and like cook, and then this zombie will sneak up behind them, and then they'll just get bit on the neck.
I mean, you guys ever seen a horror movie? You know that humans are dumb.
Exactly.
That's a spooky thing. I'm gonna go investigate it alone in the dark with no
Twitter,
light. Perfect.
You know humans are dumb.
Well, unfortunately, I do go on Twitter. My goodness.
Twitter.
All right.
Twitter's a cesspool and is honestly some of the best evidence that we're going to be our own undoing.
I didn't need more convincing.
I think what we get to the end of this question is essentially the math seems to line up, but we're unsure about the nitty-gritty details because it's beyond what we're currently able to explain or understand.
Well, and here's the thing. Let's say that tomorrow someone comes out with a different theory that has better predictive power and more reliability. And okay, cool. I'm not like
that one now. It's
stuck on the Big Bang theory.
Yeah. And it's still going to have to explain all of the expansion that we see in the evidence for the Big Bang. So it's not going to be radically different.
Right, and I agree. I'm just saying that if Big Bang Theory were swapped out for something that was better, okay.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not emotionally wedded to it.
All right, next question.
40.
Oh.
Skip it.
Skip
it.
Math. Moving on.
Trash.
Land exists.
It's the exact same damn question.
Oh.
Did you observe the Big Bang?
I mean, the easy answer is, well, actually, the easy answer is yes. The Big Bang is ongoing.
We're still watching it. Yeah.
Right. It's happening right
Same
now.
as
It's not
evolution, right?
That's fair.
I didn't see the start of it. I won't see the end of it, but I'm seeing part of it, and that's good enough for me.
I'm currently observing it. Yeah, that's fair.
And what they're going for, there's the Planck time. We can't go back to, a certain time back. So no, we didn't observe the start of everything, but it
Who is it that
doesn't
says
really
this?
matter.
Is this a Banana Man or is this Ken Ham that's like, well, were you there? Who
That's
is it
Ken.
That's Ken
It's
Ham.
it's Ken Ham.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his catchphrase.
Yeah.
Well, were
Yes.
you
Yeah.
there? Were you there when God made it? No, but I have faith. Oh, okay, cool. All right, moving on. Question
No,
42.
it's
Why do you believe the Earth is millions of years old?
We don't. It's billions.
Yeah, it's billions. But I mean, okay, here's the real question. Is question 43 going to be what is the evidence that the Earth is millions of years old?
That is
Find
the
out.
question.
You know it.
Okay.
It's gotta be.
Hey!
Run.
All right, so
Where's
we'll
your
just tackle
evidence for
both
the
of
Earth
these.
being millions
Yeah,
of years old?
All right. Who wants to go first on this one? I'm sure we all have slightly different answers with the same core.
Let's
I-
let
I'd like to hear from
Unholy
Unholy.
roast. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say you guys first because I have a more general idea of things. You guys have more specific knowledge than I do.
That's almost better. General and then into specifics.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the general thing is we see, entire fields, cosmology, oh my god, even just the fossil record shows that Earth is not thousands of years old. Oh my god.
How about all the
I
evidence for the
can't.
Big Bang we were talking about? The
can't.
math.
I mean,
Right.
let's hit him.
Right.
Let's hit him with the specifics. The speed of light is just a very simple explanation because they have a distant starlight problem. I mean, if we know these things are very far away and yet we're seeing light from them. So from that aspect that we know that the universe is indeed very old. If you want to get specific with the Earth, it's just the radiometric decay law. You know, anytime you have unstable isotopes, they're going to decay spontaneously into a different version of themselves. But the thing is, we can track the length of time that takes by looking at the ratio for parent to completely decay into daughter. And that's a law of physics that we have not seen broken past a degree of 1%. Like you can only accelerate, and they're not even geologically relevant elements that you can accelerate past 1% or even up to 1%.
And I have to put in here as well that because every single time I see radiometric dating brought up by creationists, they're always talking about carbon dating.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Almost.
And the issue is, and I'm sure you guys know this as well, that it only works up to 50,000 years?
It's not just that, but you can't date known age materials because there's also a minimum level of decay. So when they come around and they're like, oh, we saw Mount St. Helens erupt, and when we date the rocks from Mount St. Helens, we get crazy wild answers. Yeah,
Yes.
you would, because there's not even enough daughter material to register on the
I
machine.
made somebody cry talking about that once.
Yeah.
At Christmas! At Christmas!
Oh, yeah, but it really is true with a lot of these things like Mount St. Helens or like Krakatoa explosion stuff where we have really good idea when the date is. When you apply things like, potassium argon, it's like trying to measure how big a grain of salt is with a yardstick.
Yeah.
It's a useless tool. All you can say is really, really small.
Yeah.
And
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got carbon dating for things that are within 50,000. I think generally it's like what is safe to carbon date is it's got to be at least like 1,200 almost. Like you've got 1,200 to 50,000, and then for the really, really old, you've got rubidium strontium, which gets into the billions. So you're right. That's a great example of putting it. If you use the wrong method, you're not going to get a precise answer at all.
Yeah.
I think this is the main problem with this question.
Earth? Well, I do want to point out something. I want to point out something about Earth. Even if radiometric dating were either unknown or somehow just completely debunked and there was no utility to it at all. The problem is that just looking at the geology of Earth, we have formations of rock that cannot be laid down in the sequence that we see them in less than many millions of years. We have thick layers of sediment that have to accumulate slowly. And then we have drastic shifts in the environment. And that shift would have had to have taken some time. And then we have new depositional environments and then other depositional environments. And all through the geological record, you simply couldn't put down rocks like that in less than millions of years.
Yeah,
So,
I want to point out too that for those of you out here who encounter creationists who are
Oil?
frequently like discordant dates, right? It's like a discordant date can be anything that's like 0.001% off of the core measurement. And so you could have like 3.3, 3.4, and 3.5 billion year measurements, and those are considered 3 discordant dates, even though the general feeling is that what you're dating is probably 3.3, 3.4-ish, right?
Yeah.
So you're never going to get a discrepancy where it's like, well, shit, we just dated this rock and one says, 5.6 million and the other says 6,000 years. What do we do?
Yes.
Like, that's never happened. It just
it never comes out as good for the young Earth creationists, in other words.
it never does. No.
The thing is that they have a very hard time bringing something to the table on their side. So
Well,
a
there's
lot of
nothing
the
to bring.
times they'll try and poke holes in things, but they won't actually provide any. It's the same thing flat earthers do. They won't actually provide anything that demonstrates their own case. They'll just try and poke holes in yours.
That's
Adam
a great
Morgan for
point.
$4.99 says, my analogy for carbon dating on the maximum limit measure is gluing the yardstick on a racetrack. I can't pick it up to measure more of the track.
Yeah,
That's
I like
awesome.
that for going over the maximum. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good analogy.
That's
We
really
carbon dated.
good.
We carbon dated this Triceratops horn. That's probably a bison horn. It came back with a great age for a bison horn, but that just means Triceratops died recently.
Yeah, we
Oh
were talking
my-
about that last time.
Mm-hmm.
Just whack my head right into the
All right, next one. We good?
Yep.
yes. The fuck?
I'm 17 forever. We don't have to answer this. Well, the dinosaur should probably maybe
I'm
answer this.
about 150 million years old. It's hard to keep track after so many birthdays. So
I'm 17. How old is a gibbon?
Oh God! I mean, are we talking about are we talking about a gibbon that lives an excellent life or a wild gibbon?
No, I mean like the species.
Oh, God. When did they diverge? Well, I guess I'm 20-ish, maybe 18 to 20-ish million years old.
And how old is
Okay.
coffee?
Yeah, I just
Not
exist
at
wherever
all.
hot coffee exists. So
So
as soon
how
as
old
the
is
first cup
coffee?
was out, I'm
it's
there.
at least a few thousand years.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go.
Ta-da!
So there you go.
So I'm the
Problem
youngest.
solved.
At
Yes, by far.
17.
Hey,
Yeah.
can we get nices in the chat? Because Evil Scotsman says that they are 69.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
All right,
Nice.
next question.
Oh my God! How much time do we have?
Wait. I have to say that they were creating 100 questions, and at 44, they were already stressed enough about 100 questions. They're like, "How old are you?" It makes me feel like we're going to. What is your favorite color? Like, come
What
on.
is your quest?
Exactly.
The thing is that that's very clearly like supposed to be a strategic gotcha. Like after asking about all the stuff that are really old, they're like, "Well, how old are you? Were you
Yeah,
there?"
I'm 17.
Oh, is that why? It's a
Yeah, it's a gotcha. Like, how could you? If the Earth is billions of years old and you're only 17, how do you know? Inkboy for 5 says best evidence for old Earth is the immortal Queen of England.
Fair.
Question 45. She is.
like
Question
the
45.
answer to,
Why do?
the answer-
Sorry, I want to read it out loud. Hold on. Why
Oh,
do you
right.
reject the historical flood as described in Genesis?
see
Why do you
previous
hate
entries.
Jesus?
See previous entries is basically it. Look, every single description of the flood involves an essentially infinite number of scenarios in which all life on Earth, including Noah, dies. It's completely impossible. The entire story is not physically plausible in the least. It makes about as much sense as saying someone floated up to the moon on a balloon, and when they got there, they found out that it was made of cheese, and the worms that lived there gave them an invisible purple unicorn to fly back to Earth on. Nothing about it remotely is in the realm of things that even make sense as a coherent idea. It's nonsense.
The thing is that as oh god, the fact that they put historical flood too just kills me, because it's like, all right, do we say that there was a wow, it's been a really rainy season here in ancient Mesopotamia, and all of a sudden our entire village is like whatever 60 deep in water because the fucking Nile can't keep its act together, and then it's like, well, okay, sure, that is technically a historical flood, like
Yeah.
that. We are talking about a global flood where the water covers literally everything. What do they say? However many cubits above the tallest mountain, it ain't
And
gonna
for 40 days.
Yeah. It's been
global
40.
TD Lane sent us a picture in response.
Nice. Oh, could people see that? Because it's on your screen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I forget which part of
Okay.
this is covered up by your camera.
Yeah, there are so many things wrong with the historical flood.
I can hear
Obviously,
the
if
quotation marks.
everything,
Yep.
that's why I went back actually. So if the entire Earth, the entire surface of the Earth, were covered for 40 days, pretty much every single plant would die. Maybe there'd be some type of algae or something that would be able to survive. No idea, but pretty much all plants would be gone. All of the animals would be gone, but supposedly after this massive flood, like kangaroos were able to migrate just to Australia and only be seen.
Yeah, I don't even
Yeah.
think algae would be able to survive because algae usually does well in still water, not a raging worldwide
Not a freaking
flood.
torrent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
You know
yeah.
You know, it's a question that, specifically regarding the marsupials that I never really see addressed, or even often asked, is why are there marsupial fossils in Antarctica and South America, but none of them seem to have managed to get back there after the flood, and only the ones in Australia managed to survive?
Right.
And why is it that aligns so closely with the mainstream biogeography and how it correlates with, plate tectonics, but so poorly with any explanation of biogeography from the flood? Marsupials
fair.
really killed the flood.
Marsupials are problematic, and in my opinion, the other enormously massive problem has to do with arthropods. Like, insects are so vital for repopulating this entire world of plant life, and you have what? 2 ants, 2 bees.
Oh no, they didn't even take them. They didn't need to be on the ark, apparently.
It depends on who you talk to.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, because the thing is that when in the situations where they're like, no, you don't need to take them, they're surviving on, vegetation mats. It's like, oh, really? The same vegetation mats that were lit on fire by ballistic lightning to lay down everything we need for the Carboniferous layer? those
and you know what, Erica? It gets worse for ants and other hymenopterans, right? Because they have a haplodiploid sex determination.
Exactly.
Every other kind gets to have 4 sets of each one chromosome, right? In a haploid group. They only get 3. They should have 25% less genetic diversity than everything else. Do they? Do they, creationists?
Can you imagine the colony collapse if colony collapse syndrome impacted the first 0 genetic diversity?
Yeah.
Won't someone please think of the bees?
Yeah.
I got one that can make this a lot more simple. Basic engineering of wood and a boat.
Yeah.
You can't have a plank of wood that long and put it in water and attach it to something and expect it not to twist and snap.
Well, I've said to Erica a few times, we could have like a whole series where all we do is just sit around and talk about the different, essentially infinite reasons the flood is impossible.
Oh yeah. The answer is that it's impossible. That's why we reject it for many, many countless reasons.
We could talk about it for literally hours.
Yep.
And the wild thing is that creationists would have such a reduction in issues they had to deal with if they were just like, it might be local, it might be allegorical, but for whatever reason, we gotta have that global flood. Like,
they're into this one, yeah.
Okay, if you really want to, if that's the hill we want to die on or drown on, rather.
Yeah. All right, next question.
Okay.
What is the evidence that you will reject the flood?
Motherfucker!
All right, let's go to 47. Let's just go.
We already
We just
answered
spent
this.
forever. Oh my goodness. I do not understand.
Why do you reject the story of the Garden of Eden? The Leaping Bear, DKK 20, human gene pool versus Kind's gene pool
Kind
after
gene
the flood? Question mark?
Yeah,
right?
there is a good reason to think that if that story is correct, so we'll just assume that all of Noah's daughters are essentially unrelated. But then, okay, so
all right.
then or not his daughters, his daughters-in-law, or his sons, daughters-in-law. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And his sons have a pretty good mix of he and his wife's genetics, right? So basically, we have the genomes from what, 5 people or so, which is about 2.5 times as much as pretty much all of the other quote-unquote kinds. So we should expect humans to have about 2.5 times as much genetic diversity as any other group of organisms that creationists would call a kind. I'll give you a hint. They really, really don't.
You almost
not even
said
a little
they
bit.
fucking don't, and you didn't.
Yeah, well, I'm trying not to get super demonetized.
No, don't worry. This is my channel.
Oh, in that case, yeah, they really fucking don't. Humans have a fairly small genetic diversity if you can compare it to, say, Felidae as a whole, which is a common kind.
Well, can we also talk about how insane the amount of people would be, like, just the breeding that those few people left would need to do to fill the entire world and have the crazy diversity we have? What was it, like 2 or 3 generations after the flood, that it's like Egypt now has tens of thousands of people?
Oh, the
exactly.
Egypt,
what?
Yes. Chronology is straight up deep sixing the entirety of the flood, which is why they had to fucking release Exodus patterns of evidence so that they could completely get around all of the problems that Egyptian chronology presents, and they get this total hack to come up there and present a brand new chronology that works. You know, it blows my mind. But
was this an AIG thing?
Patterns of evidence, I think, might have been ICR.
Okay.
But props to Icarus too in the chat, who says, "Why do you hate the flood?" as the next question.
Yes.
Why do you reject the story of the Garden of Eden?
Well, the Garden of Eden specifically, it doesn't
it's
even
self-contradictory.
It's self-contradictory to some extent. It doesn't even seem to present itself as a real story, as a historical thing. Like, it's got so many things that, like, if you just think about them from, like, the theological standpoint, like, why is God questioning these things? What does it mean he's walking around in the garden? What's up with the snake talking? Is it actually Satan? It sounds like
the entire
origin
thing
myth.
Being a complete setup because there's no possible way for Adam and Eve to know that disobeying God is wrong because they don't know what wrong is in the first place.
Not to mention, God created the whole garden and he put that plant there purposefully.
There.
Right. And I'll be honest, I actually don't think that the authors of Genesis intended for people to take this as an account of literal history. It doesn't read like they did.
No.
It sounds like it's set in the mythical past.
Well, because there's literally 2 different versions with different timelines. So
it's not that. It's the linguistics and the grammar. I mean, Genesis is known amongst Hebrew scholars as being like poetic prose combined. So they essentially call it like exalted prose. So it's hyperbolic is the idea. But here's your interesting little like also side question. So here's our layout, right? So we've got Eden, it's wherever it is, and then at some point afterwards the flood happens and rearranges all the continents. So when Adam and Eve get booted from Eden, God's like, you can't come back in here, and he puts like a hugely buff angel with like a flaming sword right there.
Sword.
Yeah.
Sword.
Where is it?
No, Erica, this has already been explained. Have you never read the Gate Guardian SCP-000 proposal?
SCPs.
Problem solved. There's a giant flaming angel somewhere in the Middle East, but anytime anyone tries to attack him, they're instantly annihilated. And if you walk away, there's a really good chance you're just going to forget it.
Perfect.
But why wouldn't we be able to see it on satellite?
Because you would forget it. You see it all the time. It's like the things from Doctor Who, right? Like you look away and it's gone.
The silence.
The weeping.
Have you guys ever read or watched Good Omens?
I started Good Omens. I can't remember why I stopped watching. I think something just came up and then I forgot about it. Oh my god!
I think the same thing happened to me too. Yeah, I think that's what happened to me.
One of the main characters is the angel with the flaming sword. And then he gives his sword away, and so an angel, like centuries later, is like, didn't you have like this sword like on fire and stuff?
Wait a minute, what did you do with that?
No. Yeah.
He put it in a bag of holding, and forgot it was in there.
And gone.
Then he dropped a black hole in there, or not a black hole, a portable hole in there, and things were terrible.
I'll tell you what, I think the answer to this question is, show us where it is. Either mathematically or with geography, show us where it is, where it takes place, and actually this is what it is.
Yeah,
and then we'll take it a little bit more seriously. At least we
An
know the Garden of
intrigued
Eden
feline reminded
actually
me.
exists, because the thing is you're running into a problem of reject the story about it. I don't just reject that the place exists entirely.
So, the silence is what I was talking about, which I think Unholy Rose mentioned too.
Yep.
I couldn't think of the name because I forgot it, obviously.
Dun
Obviously.
dun dun.
All right.
Next.
Just go on, keep going. 49.
We're back to Jesus. Why do you reject the sacrifice Jesus made? Because we hate him.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm gonna go refill my water while you guys talk about that real quick.
Are you gonna refill it with not water though?
I'm gonna bow out of that one.
God damn you, Dapper. I was about to go get some more coffee. Right,
Everybody just
gets
up and walks away.
No. You know what? I'll at least answer in part.
Yeah,
here.
you guys take this. I'll be back as well.
Go for
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
you have this omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God who created everything, and he goes, "Yeah, you know what? Here's the rules for the world, and I'm gonna put in blood sacrifices, because that's something I really value." And then later on, he goes, "Oh, wait a second, this is bad. I didn't see this coming. I guess I've got to send my son down, or alternatively, a different version of myself, to have a really shitty weekend to make things better, to get around the rules that I made, even though I knew this was going to happen." Bullshit.
Yo, no, fair. Absolutely fair. I think
Yeah, because
the
we
omnipotent
went
being
through
this- left.
when, oh shit, this didn't go the way I wanted. Didn't see this coming.
yeah, exactly. We talked about, like, fine, there probably was some figure that, or combination of figures, I don't really care.
Whatever.
There could have
yeah.
been historical Jesus, doesn't matter to me, but it's all of the supernatural aspect that pisses me off, especially when you get into this triomni God that was so incapable that he had to sacrifice himself to himself. Bullshit.
to save us from himself.
Yes.
Helios for
It's
for
there-
2. He tricked me. Chesh, that is question 50. On the other hand though, how about from a moral standpoint? Somebody has to die because you lied to your parents about your homework? Like,
Right.
I would reject it on a moral standpoint. You don't even need, even if you accept the whole damn thing. This is the thing. Just even if you were to take the Christian God, the standard Christian God, and be like, and you've demonstrated that yes, he exists 100%. That does not equate to accepting him and worshiping him. You could say he exists and still think he's a dick.
So there's an OG atheist YouTuber named Bionic Dance, and she has one of the best lines that I love to bring up in situations like this. If she were to find out that the Christian God did indeed exist, she would then be searching for the magical sword or spell that could kill the bastard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, rules state that if it exists, if it bleeds, it dies.
Ugh.
Alright, next question.
Next.
Where's your evidence that Jesus wasn't crucified?
And now we're back to the same thing before of, yeah, okay, there was a guy named Jesus, or a figure that became represented by Jesus in the Bible that was crucified. Okay,
Yeah.
what of it?
I don't
Yeah,
need
it
evidence.
was very common.
I
Who
just
cares?
hate him. I don't need evidence. I just hate him.
The thing is,
I'm
it's
starting to
essentially
hate Jesus.
It has been said that the worst thing about Jesus is his followers.
Yeah, the thing is
Mhm.
like, I really don't know anybody who, at least not personally, maybe there are scholars out there who are, die hard one way or the other on this. Like, from a scholarly
Who's got
perspective,
time?
it's interesting.
And money
Yeah,
to
but it's
care.
There's a few things. One is, it's such a trivial question as to whether the crucifixion is a historical event. Like, outside of trying to prove Christianity, it's a completely meaningless thing whether it happened. The only people I know who disagree that it happened, oddly enough, are Muslims and mythicists.
Yep.
for different reasons.
So I think you're asking the
I'm
wrong
neither
people this
of
question,
those.
yeah.
Yeah, so... Oh, I guess I
yeah.
just revealed my hand on my religion stance a little bit. You now know that I'm a non-Muslim.
Oh, no.
And that was my guess.
I think the answer is that what we discussed before about whether, like, when you're saying Jesus, do you mean all of the magic or just some guy? Because if it's just some guy, yeah, some guy probably got crucified. That happened a lot.
No, and the thing is, too,
nobody said he didn't.
Like, the thing, yeah. I don't know. I think that most of the stuff that Jesus was chatting about was pretty cool. So it's like, that shit is sad if he did get crucified. It's like, but whether
it's like Martin Luther King getting shot, kind of sucks. Right.
Yeah, it sucks. That shit is sad. It's like, if you're out here trying to do something good or trying to make the world a better place, and then someone comes and kills you, I'm never going to be a big fan of that. But the specifics here, I don't know. I don't have a horse in this race.
I think most atheists don't really care, because this mostly just goes off of, where's your evidence that he wasn't crucified? Keep in mind, the last question was why do you reject the sacrifice? You can say that you can reject the sacrifice without rejecting that he was crucified in the first place.
Right. I think he's assuming that that the answers to this question will say that Jesus didn't exist.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines, and that's why he's asking the next question. He's presuming a lot.
I would say Jesus, as he's presented in the Bible, probably didn't exist. Whether or not there was some guy named Jesus that probably walked around and talked a bunch of shit, I mean, yeah, probably. Was he killed? Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah, lots of people were killed.
Right.
Whatever. Next question?
Next question.
Yeah, we already saw that was.
Yep.
Why do you reject the resurrection of Jesus?
I don't know. Maybe because there's 3 completely different accounts with completely different people involved, and it basically seems like no one can get their damn story straight in the Bible.
I think, for me, what it boils down to is I don't know. Like, it seems like one of those deals where it's like, if I'm looking at the Bible, right, and I'm taking a lot of it from an allegorical perspective, you reach this point, and it's kind of like, well, I don't really know. You don't really know what to do with it, kind of, because you're right. There are different accounts, and I've heard people say before in the past, and I don't know how much there is to this. I honestly think a case could be made for it being a support or rather a detractor, but it's like, the fact that there's different accounts means that there's more validity. It suggests that someone wasn't in there tampering to make the stories all match up. But then I kind of have a problem with that, because we know that there's been tampering with the Bible, with like all of the sons of God business. So it's like, I don't know that necessarily holds. I think that the best argument that I've heard is the sorry, I'm eating jerky.
How dare you eat on stream? That's such a rude thing to do. I totally never eat on Steve's stream and channel literally all of the time.
I know. Listen,
I do it just to piss off trolls.
The rule of thumb is it just can't be crunchy. One time I ate dry pasta on a video that I did, and I got a lot of flack for it. And I can't do it anymore. I kid you not, I probably got 6 or 7 emails that was like, please don't ever do that again. And I was like, good God.
One of my first ever live streams, because I knew these trolls were going to show up, I had cheese and crackers off to the side, and as soon as they popped up and they were like, good to see you're not eating, I just reached over.
Numb.
Isn't that interesting?
So I want to jump in here with some historical stuff, having some history training. So it is actually a pretty important thing in history to have independent attestation, and it's not unheard of for historical events to have contradictory stories about them. For instance, the path of Hannibal on his way from North Africa through the Alps to Rome is contradictory in every single source that we have for it. But we still pretty sure that Hannibal crossed the Alps in some way, because we have archaeological evidence of his passage in certain areas. We just don't know how it happened. So there's some questions with the Gospels that are tough to overcome from a historical standpoint. One is, are they really independent attestations? Because most of them seem to be, to one degree or another, somewhat reliant on Mark.
Right.
They often quote Mark directly. John is the one that seems least reliant on Mark. However, the problem there is that it also seems to be the one that is the least likely to have been based on even eyewitness interviews. Unless, of course, the John who wrote it is in fact the John who was mentioned in some of the other Gospels. And it seems like the author intended to imply that. So maybe, but even then,
do you want to know?
There's some questions about that. And plus, even if you have multiple attestation, if the event itself is hard to justify from a physical standpoint, then it's likely to be something that historians are generally not going to accept.
Do you want to know?
It didn't happen, but I don't know.
I have a reason for saying that there's so many different versions and they don't match up, because I get that there's different, exactly like you said, there's different historical things that are recorded differently. However, knowing that this is coming from a young earth creationist and knowing that he takes a historical view of like the flood, for example, it's very, very common with young earth creationists to try and take the Bible literally word for word.
Right.
And so I think because of that, it's very valid to point out, hey, these do not match up. And so you either have to take the Bible literally word for word, or you're not.
No, there's not really a gradient that you can propose there. And the interesting thing is like, from my perspective, it's like, all right, if you are going to take the leap that miracles can happen and someone can be brought back to the dead, then
which is quite a big leap.
Which is that, yes, exactly. There is a buttload of whatever external or internal evidence that can support your position. Because the problem from my perspective is, okay, can people come back from the dead? Right? Like, that's the leap for me. It's like, it's none of the other stuff. It's none of the minutia of, all right, well, are the accounts corroborating? Is X, Y, Z, does it check out? Pliny the Elder, all the proposed extra biblical sources that I don't know nearly enough about to be speaking with any kind of authority on. But for me, the leap is the simplest one. Can someone come back from the dead? And I've certainly not seen, I guess, anything that suggests that can happen. So it all comes down to, can you make that leap? And then comes the second part, which is like, all right, if that's something that you're going to allow for in your worldview, miraculous things, then you can go to the second step, which is, did this specific event happen?
That's a really good point.
You get what I mean? You also run into a whole other problem where you've got, it wasn't just that Jesus rose from the dead. There was a bunch of other shit that also went on at the same time.
Yeah, a bunch of other
zombies wandering around, and you would think that there would be some kind of corroborating evidence outside of the Bible, and there is none. That would be why we reject it, I think, when it comes down to it.
Yep.
What's the next question, guys? I think we can guess.
Yeah.
Where's your evidence?
The resurrection? Oh yeah, where's it? Oh goodness.
I'm getting so annoyed.
So this is basically like 45 questions for atheists?
Yeah.
Or not even just for atheists, for like anti-theists is more likely.
Well, and people who are not accepting of a literal.
Oh, there's an interesting question, actually.
Question 53. Why do you deny the existence of Jesus but accept the existence of Muhammad? That's actually not a bad question.
I'm actually slightly more skeptical of the existence of Muhammad, honestly.
I know nothing about the historicity or proposed evidence for Muhammad. Literally, I know nothing about it. That I cannot say either way. If I had to guess on the existence of Jesus, I think most scholars agree that a guy named Jesus existed. So I'm cool with that. We've beat that dead horse ad nauseum. So as for Muhammad, I gotta step out on this one, guys, because I don't know. I have no idea what the evidence is.
The evidence for Muhammad is a bit sketchy. For one thing, there is some reason to think. Well, so Muhammad is an appellation that you can use of someone that's not their name. It literally means the one who is praised or the one who should be praised. And so people were called that when it wasn't their name. So when some people point to coins with that name on them, it's not very convincing because it's not at all clear that these early coins were in fact the proper name of someone. It doesn't give his last or his, well, his.
Well, isn't that the same thing as Jesus? Jesus at the time didn't actually refer to their name. It was more of a title.
No, Jesus was actually a common given name.
Oh, okay.
It's the same name as Joshua.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Christ. Sorry, not.
Yeah, Christ.
Yeah, sorry,
Christ
that was
was
my
not
mistake.
a name. In fact, even in later use, it really wasn't considered to be Jesus' name. It was still an appellation, like, especially since so in Greek, you get the Jesus Christ. Well, titles come after the first name. So if you were to say King Steve or something, if we you put Steve first, and then you would add King in Greek. So even in the Greek, where it's frequently seen as Jesus Christ, it's not like it's his last name; it's his title. That's why sometimes in English you'll hear people say Christ Jesus. It's because that's the normal order in modern English.
I was thinking about it a little bit more about like what it would take for me to believe like Jesus as like a god man, and it would be that, well, I mean, he was a carpenter. If there was like an indestructible table set that had the initials JC carved into them, that would be kind of convincing. And I mean indestructible. I don't mean that like it's been around the whole time. No, I mean like you can drop this thing off of a skyscraper and it's completely, you've dented the pavement kind of shit. Like you should be able to load this up as a ballistic missile and do damage to other things.
So I have to bring this up now. There's an entire series which was really fascinating but really like political. This book series, this fantasy series that humankind found alien life and they were hostile and they were more advanced than humans, and so kind of as a last-ditch effort they sent a single ship with a bunch of people to restart humanity and not get to this technological point where the aliens can pick up on them. But the leaders of this ship decided to go crazy, and they're like, no, we want to be remembered as gods. And so they used their technology to create kind of this type of thing. Like they had these church buildings that were completely indestructible and they were like heated without any obvious source. And then they essentially restarted humanity saying, we are gods. Right. Here's the proof. And they wiped the memories of the people. So even saying that, oh my God, look, we found this table that has Jesus Christ and we can't break it. We can't, like, this is perfect. I still think it's more likely that there's some weird shit like in a fantasy book than that it's a legitimate miracle.
I really like, though, this moment, right? Where you've got like these archaeologists, they're hanging out in Nazareth, right? And they find this secret tomb and it's just woodwork. And they're like, uh-oh.
I think that this question is really like loaded and assuming. Is that, why do you think we accept that?
Right.
Well, I will say,
I think most of us don't really consider it unless something like this comes up, whereas Dapper is studied history, so he's had a lot more time to think about it.
I'll say this, in addition to
that... Sorry, go ahead.
I'll just go quick. So basically, all of the things that the mythicists say make the historical existence of Jesus suspect can be applied several-fold to Muhammad. The earliest thing that we have about his biography or even sayings of him come more than a century. It was actually a couple centuries after his supposed life. And in the earliest accounts that we have of what are now considered Muslim groups moving out to conquer, their theology and even the text of the Quran does not seem to have settled down, nor even does the number of chapters in the Quran seem to have settled, nor which chapters are actually part of the Quran and which are other associated writings. So the narrative that you get from Muslim sources greatly contradicts the sources you get anywhere else. And again, we have that much bigger time gap problem.
It's the equivalent of, oh well, Jesus the guy and Jesus in the story. Muhammad in the story is not necessarily Muhammad the guy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I have the same thing with Jesus as I do Muhammad, and it's exactly that. I don't give a shit if a character like that existed. It's the supernatural. It's the miracles. That's the things. Those are the things that are actually important.
Yeah, and that's the jump, right? That's the leap. I mean, I am totally. I know nothing about Muhammad, but if someone came out and was like, it is without, there are no doubts that Muhammad is a guy who existed, I'd be like, okay, cool, nice, very cool, Kanye. You know,
but did he split the moon in two, and did he go to heaven on a Pegasus or whatever it was?
Wait, did he? Like, is that the tale?
Those are stories in the Muslim sources. Although the Quran seems to contradict them, because it says that the only miracle that Muhammad was sent with was the Quran. But then we also have stories about him taking a miraculous flight to Jerusalem and then up to heaven, and also splitting the moon in two. So.
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Like, I imagine if there's like a round table of young Earth creationists, and they're like leafing through the Quran, and they see like this Pegasus or like moon shit, and they're like, at least we don't have to contend with that. At least we don't have to come up with like pseudoscientific explanations for why the moon is in one piece when.
Well, don't worry. He split the moon in two, and then it came back together.
Right.
It got better.
By the way,
I like how we keep going back to that movie.
I want to point a little. There's an Easter egg. The story of Muhammad's night flight to Jerusalem and then up into heaven is referenced somewhere on the World Anvil for my Speculative Evolution page. Go find it.
Are we ready for the next
question?
question?
Yeah, yes. I'm ready.
Yes.
Oh.
I fucking love Christmas.
A very, like, I love the times because people seem to be happy. I don't celebrate, like, Christ with Christmas. I'm like, hey, cool. Time to be with family. Time to be with the people that I care about. Great.
Christmas is just fun no matter how you hash it. Like,
my family is pretty religious, so they tend to do the religious portions of Christmas, but I don't go to... once in a blue moon, I'll go to church with them if they talk me into it, but I'll only go to certain services. Like, because I can't handle going to, like, the pageants, because usually they have a lot of little kids, and I'm like, I can't not say anything with all of the little kids, so I'm like... I'm not going to those because I'm just going to start yelling at people, so I don't go to those ones. But like a candlelit service with like singing songs, I mean, that's kind of a good time. To be in a big group of like 500 people and sing fucking Jingle Bells.
That I think too, like even if you
I also really like winter.
Winter.
Yes, me too. And snow.
No matter what perspective you come at it from, like the general message and feeling of like, let's be hopeful that comes with Christmas. Dude, that's gangbusters fun. Like, I love
the general message of Christmas has absolutely nothing to do with the religion.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, and it can or it can't. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't think that we need to.
It's not required. Yeah, it's
right.
Not a requirement.
It was certainly inspired by explicitly Christian stories, but it
not
doesn't
before that, because the Christians hijacked a different. Hijack solstice.
The solstice doesn't ever occur on Christmas, though. It's actually a little bit more iffy than that. That's one of those things that you hear a lot in movement atheism, but when you look into it, the facts are sort of
the stuff that I've looked into is that a lot of the symbolism of Christmas is not Christmas, and a lot of the switch of getting people to switch over to Christianity was lining up with a specific date to just kind of like, you know, pony onto an already existing sort of pseudo holiday, and then just making it more and more. And like the reason Christmas exists the way it does right now is because of Coca-Cola and Macy's. So whatever.
Well, that's true. Although things like Christmas trees and Yule logs were taken from winter solstice festivals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to make. The specifics like the Christmas tree. Right.
However, Christmas as a celebration regarding the birth of Jesus predated the co-option of Yule festivities.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that they just made it up to hijack. I mean, they had one, and then they latched them both together, and just to sort of like pony onto this wagon to.
They did like the Romans. They're like, ooh, we like that. Yoink.
Yeah. Yoink. It's just that a lot of times you get these weird stories, and it happens a lot regarding Christian history, where people who don't actually know anything about the chronology or the events involved or the significance of any events come up with these things like, oh, the Christians just adopted December 25th because it was the winter solstice, and then they took all of those things and rebranded them. It's like, that's not exactly how any of that worked. I mean, some aspects are more or less accurate, but there's people who don't know enough about
Christians. You mean it's more nuanced than that? You don't say.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's one of those things where a lot of people who like to talk about Christian history without ever actually having looked into it get a lot of things wrong. Like, oh, the Bible was, which books were in the Bible was decided at the Council of Nicaea. No, it wasn't. Wasn't even an issue.
Smitty has a decent question. So why did they celebrate Jesus' birthday in winter then? Why was Christmas already put in during winter ahead of time?
It's based on the. It's actually a feast that developed after the Feast of the Annunciation, which is when God comes and tells Mary that she's going to become pregnant. And there was a belief among some of the.
So it's not his birthday; it's his conception day. Are
no,
we all celebrating Mary getting fucked by God?
No, because it's 9 months after the Feast of the Annunciation. And so there was this belief. It's Christmas happens 9 months after the Feast of the Annunciation. So, and then there was this, and that happens on the 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation. And there was a common belief at the time that prophets tended to be born either one day before, on the day of, or day after 9 months from their conception. I don't know why the belief developed. I don't think it's a part of any modern Christian sect as a dogma or anything. But because of that, they picked a day exactly 9 months later, and the feast celebrating the conception of John the Baptist is celebrated 9 months minus a day.
I just want to make sure I've got this right.
Before his birthday.
I just want to make sure I've got this right. So you're saying that 9 months after it was announced that Mary would have Jesus, then copulation 9 months later is what we're celebrating?
No. The idea is supposed to be.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand.
Mary is supposed to have become pregnant. That the Feast of the Annunciation is essentially celebrating both the announcement and her actual conception.
So yeah, we're celebrating Mary getting fucked.
But that's 9 months before Christmas. Then on Christmas, you celebrate the birth of Jesus.
So it is the birth of Jesus. Oh my God,
right.
You're confusing
it's just
the hell out
based
of me.
on the date. It's the reason they picked December 25th is because they picked a date 9 months after they were already celebrating the conception.
So, just one question: was there consent involved?
No.
Well, so according to
she was told it was happening.
So I will say this: the text does not make it very clear that there was consent. However, if you look at hymnography from very far back in Christianity, the main thing that's talked about with Mary is, in fact, her giving of consent.
So the problem is that consent has to do with also balance of power, and I would love to see a Jewish woman say no to their God.
Can you imagine if Mary was just like, that's not gonna work.
Nah, my God.
Well, actually, that question is something that is taken up in Christian theology from like the 6th or so century on, I want to say. So it is a question that's come up in Christian theology. And while, like I said, the biblical text is pretty ambiguous on the matter of consent, it has been the historical Christian belief that there was consent given. Questions about balance of power are a different thing, but that is the typical belief in historical Christian
Okay, so I just want to go back one sec, because I really want to get this straight. There's a celebration that was already happening that for some reason had the announcement that Mary was going to be pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That's we're celebrating Mary getting fucked. Then 9 months later is Christmas, which is biologically would make sense for when Jesus was born, but all of the historical records don't say that Jesus was born at Christmas time. Right.
Then the reason for that is that there was never really any particular concern for exactly when the Feast of the Annunciation should fall, and as far as the season. I've never seen any source that said, we picked it because we think that's actually when it happened. They just kind of needed a day.
Can I just say that, like, I don't believe in this God and religion because their continuity is trash? Is that fair?
Well, to some extent, although I don't think it was ever thought of as being a literal
birthday
anniversary of the birthday. It was just, we need a day to celebrate these events. And for symbolic purposes, we'll put one day 9 months after the other day that we just kind of picked out of a hat.
I did not know any of this. This is very educational for me, Dapper.
This is hurting my brain.
You don't know it unless you're the kind of guy who co-teaches that Christian history class he's taking for an A. Because the professor doesn't know half the answers.
Oh, feels bad. All right, so I don't know. Let's go down the list. Dapper, then Erica, then Unholy Roast. Do you celebrate Christmas?
Yes.
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 Yes, we like Christmas. All right,
Yes.
next
question is why? Why do you celebrate Christmas?
No,
It's the one type of year where I don't hate humanity
Did you
in general.
know that Christmas is a Christian holiday commemorating the birth of Jesus? Dapper, did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
You did know that? Erica, did you know that? Did you know this?
vaguely, yes.
All right, cool. Unholy Roast, did you know this?
First time I'm hearing it, totally out of the blue.
Oh,
Wow.
you didn't even know. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. I was kind of aware that this might have been a thing. All right, next question. Do you say Merry Christmas? Sometimes.
Is this a war on Christmas thing?
I have a question. Are they asking only on Christmas? Do you say Merry Christmas at any other time of the year?
Oh, I annoyingly keep up Merry Christmas for the entire 12 days of Christmas at least, and then sometimes when it becomes Christmas on the old calendar in places like Russia, well, there's now a gap of a day. I skip it for that day, and then I start back up for another 12 days.
Well,
Erica, do you say Merry Christmas?
Absolutely. I say Merry Christmas. I say Happy Holidays. I say Happy Hanukkah. Particularly if I know what the person celebrates, then I tailor that shit. But otherwise, whatever. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for.
Unholy Roast, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm very active in interfaith circles, so I often will be saying Happy Holidays simply because a lot of the people I talk to aren't Christian or Mormon or anything else. But if I exactly like God's Gibbon, if I know that they celebrate Christmas, I will say Merry Christmas.
I come from a very religious family, so they all say Merry Christmas, and I'm not going to be a dick to them for no reason. John Lloyd for 10 said, here's a small belated Christmas present for you. Oh, yes.
Nice.
I like Christmas, so I have no problem saying Merry Christmas most of the time.
When it comes to me, I kind of find it boring when someone wishes me a happy holiday. I kind of wish they wish me a happy whatever it is they're doing.
Oh, that'd be cool,
that tells me something about them. Like if you celebrate Hanukkah, wish me a happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.
If you celebrate Christmas, wish me a happy Christmas, or a Merry Christmas, or whatever thing you want. Because for me, it's like a happy holidays is just kind of boring because it's like, what?
Can we get a Merry Christmas in the chat from everybody? Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry whatever you celebrate.
Yeah.
And also Merry whatever you're currently celebrating. Happy birthday to probably somebody. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Maybe even Jesus, I guess. Why do you want to prevent people from saying Merry Christmas?
Everyone here says it, so I don't think we do.
Who does that?
No.
Adam Morgan for $4.99 says, isn't there cosmological reasons for Christmas to be on the 25th following the sun's anal Emma?
Analema. It's the figure eight pattern the sun does.
Emma.
So
the sun dips below horizon for 3-ish days after solstice.
So the thing is that only occurs in places that are considerably farther north than the places where Christmas was first celebrated. So this ties into the whole solar theology thing, which is basically just a conspiracy theory about the development of Christian theology, which basically, it was an attempt to discredit Christianity in the stupidest way you could possibly imagine.
Also, Shesh, I'm pretty sure that someone in my high school had that nickname.
Anal Emma?
Glorious. Well, practice safe sex if you don't want to get pregnant. Helios for 2 says, Dapper, do you know about Greek names days?
The names for the days? Like of the week?
So. Probably.
Or does he mean... I'm not entirely sure what the question is, so the answer is maybe?
Type your question in @Dapper or me, and I'll reread it. You don't have to super chat again.
At both of us.
So, guys, do we know anybody who wants to prevent people from saying Merry Christmas? I know some people want their religions to be recognized and their religious holidays to be recognized, but not to prevent people from saying Merry Christmas.
No, the whole war on Christmas thing is bullshit. And I went through even I was raised in a religious household. I've always thought the war on Christmas is bullshit. I have never in my life met someone in person who, when I said Merry Christmas to them, they were like, excuse me?
How dare
It does not happen. It's all a part of what I think is a very large persecution deal from evangelicals specifically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I honestly know of more people who would like to stop people from saying Happy Holidays, and I know people who would like to stop people from saying Merry Christmas.
Yeah, there are more people that get offended if you say Happy Holidays to them than Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Next.
Which, by the way, I don't. I just think it's kind of boring.
Oh, fair enough. Next question.
Next question. Oh, okay.
Let's skip it.
Moving on.
No.
War on Christmas is not real, people.
And nobody wants to force anybody to say anything. Dear God.
No,
right.
Look, if you don't, you can say nothing to me during the holidays. Most people on the entire planet say nothing to me the entire holiday season. And I don't give a fuck about it.
Yeah,
I think that there's a something that I like to do on Twitter is on New Year's, I will go through my entire history of messages of everybody who's messaged me in that year and send them a Happy New Year.
Aw.
For names days.
Yep.
So in modern Greek, I don't actually know about ancient Greek and names day, but in modern Greek, the tradition is, or Greece, the tradition is that people are named after saints recognized by the Greek Orthodox Church, and then rather than the birthday being the primary annual celebration that they celebrate, they do still have a birthday thing, but what they will do is they will have a celebration on the feast day of the saint after whom they're named.
All right, can I get a Happy Holidays in the chat? We're gonna force everybody to say Happy Holidays.
If you don't say Happy Holidays, you're banned.
You're banned.
Another, hearty props to Icarus, who says, "Next question: why do you hate Christmas?"
Cosmo, please be. Why do you hate Christmas?
Oh man.
Please.
Oh, okay.
Ooh. Do you celebrate Easter?
I didn't this year, but that's not typical Easter for me. So usually,
not really. Sometimes I make chocolate when it's on sale.
Dude, Easter's fun as hell. I love decorating eggs. I love hiding the eggs. I love making people find eggs in weird places.
Yeah, that's fun.
Very fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Easter egg hunts are fun as hell. I haven't done one in a really long time, but it's not something like I actively do.
So,
Yeah,
not only do I celebrate Easter, I join in Lent.
Ooh,
interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, every year.
I mean, it's. I think it's a healthy thing to have a period of set time where you refrain from doing some things in order to help you with your self-control, which is basically the idea behind Christian fasting. It's primarily supposed to be an exercise in helping you gain better control over your passions and desires.
Yeah. So for me personally, one of my biggest values is self-discipline. And Lent is perfect for that. So I usually give up coffee and alcohol and sugar for 40 days.
Oh my god.
That's a lot.
Oh,
yeah. And then I do it again
575,
usually in September, October. I do it again.
Oh
okay,
my,
you need to plan this and announce it for us, and we're all gonna try and watch all of us just lose our damn minds for 40 days.
No.
Just watch everybody's Twitter accounts and YouTube channels just go to shit for a month.
Meanwhile, there's me yep, this is just what I do.
This is normal.
I could do alcohol refraining for a month, and I could do sugar, but I could not do caffeine. Is
it caffeine on a whole, or is it coffee specifically?
So it's caffeine, and actually
so no pop, no tea, no
nothing.
And actually, I made it way worse for myself. This last October, I did no caffeine, no alcohol, no sugar, no fast food,
How could you
and
do
had
that
exercise
at
6 days a week.
Halloween?
Oh, I actually don't really like candy, so that is not.
Oh, it's like cheating.
Okay, yeah, that's so.
Oh no!
He's
You don't understand my weakness. You don't understand my weakness for pastries. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
By the way,
We do now.
I don't give a shit about pastries, but if you put those trolley sour gummy worms in my vicinity in a mile radius, I will sniff it out with a truffle pig.
You're like a shark with blood and water. You're like, something's near.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna do this, and right at the end, if we're ever in a position where we can all get together, we'll all do this for 40 days, meet up at the end, and I'll do a cheshcraft, and we'll do a bunch of pastries, and I'll put gummy worms in the middle, like those dishes.
All right, but Chesh, do you want to know what I gave up for the last Lent that I was giving stuff up?
I think you told me, but I don't remember.
Meat, dairy, eggs, olive oil, and alcohol.
Okay, so Dapper just ate nothing but noodles, I guess.
But there were noodles, there were beans, there were That's actually the historical fast practice for Christianity up until basically like
People were
Catholics
like,
started
this
to
is
get
too
weak
hard.
sauce. Basically,
Dapper,
Catholics started getting weak sauce in the 20th century.
You have given me inspiration.
Oh no. Musk for 2 said, I'll celebrate any holiday that results in gifts. That's fair.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
yeah, or drinking. Let's not forget the American propensity to take any excuse to drink. It's like, oh, Cinco de Mayo, some obscure holiday in Mexico that Mexicans barely celebrate.
Yes.
But can we drink
yeah,
on it? Can we
because of
drink
the battle
tequila?
that they lost.
I have never met more like casual alcoholics in my life than when I lived in the UK. Every single person over there is a casual alcoholic, and they are so happy because of it. It rains all the time. You gotta do something.
There was only one girl for every lad. Hey! All right. Well, okay, so we're gonna have to plan this. Unholy Roast, I leave it to you to inform everybody on what the rules are, when to start, and when it ends.
All right,
Oh,
well,
God.
basically, because I actually cut my Lent short this year because of all of the craziness going on.
Right.
So my plan is, as soon as I'm able to work again, I'm going to be doing it again. So I will.
That's the
I'll
plan.
reach out.
Make up
This
for
is
lost
happening.
time. Okay.
Yeah, no, exactly.
All right, all right, next question.
Okay.
Did you know that
Yes,
Easter is a
yeah.
Christian holiday commemorating the red? Yeah, we do. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Everyone knows that. Good
You
job.
guys don't
buddy.
shut up about it.
Yeah, everyone who lives in a predominantly Christian country knows what the basic things are.
It's
Do I
almost
say-
like you guys aren't oppressed or anything, so everybody knows what all your holidays are. Weird. Question 61. Do you say God bless you when someone sneezes? No,
Yeah.
I don't usually throw God in there.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
and I didn't, even when I was religious, I just said bless you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bless you is faster.
Sometimes I'll
Sometimes-
say if you die, nothing happens.
Whatever, gesundheit, whatever. I
Gesundheit.
genuinely. The thing is that
Sometimes I say ew if they sneeze in my face.
I say shit when I sneeze.
Yeah?
here's my thing. I'm very much not inclined at all to say anything to people who like are scream sneezers rather. That's like a huge thing of mine. Like there is no need to be excessive about it. I know for a fact that people can sneeze quieter, and I've got like 3 scream sneezers in my family. Like full on blast. And every time I almost jump out of my skin and I want to like go ape shit on them. I'm like, excessive. There's no reason for that. Take it down like 60 notches. So
AT2's gonna get really. Why do you hate sneezes? AT2's gonna get really mad at me with pagan roots that aren't Christian.
I have a rule about bless you though. Each person gets 3 per day from me, and if you exceed it during that day, that's it. You're cut off. Because
yeah.
if you're sneezing that much more, and I'm around you enough to notice, I don't want to have to keep saying it. You got 3, you're done.
Take a Claritin,
Seriously.
take a Zyrtec. There's no reason to sneeze that much.
That's fair. I usually, if I start sneezing that much, I try to leave the room.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, next question.
What?
I've never heard of this ever.
Who
Never heard of
cares?
this.
Why do you want people to not say bless you when someone sneezes? I've never heard of this.
This is a new level of persecution complex here.
Yeah, we don't know what you're referring to. If you could please give us an example of somebody doing this, that would be great. Thanks. Next question.
This sounds like something he saw in a video on PureFlix about how evil atheists are.
Question 63. Why do you want to take prayer out of school?
Ooh.
Because it doesn't belong
yes.
there. Who cares?
Exactly. And not to mention that some people do pray, some people don't pray. Also, there's people who pray a specific way. If you can't cater to everyone, you don't cater.
Yeah.
Especially because at least in the US, separation of church and state.
Yeah, people confuse 2 things going on here. They conflate this. Not having the teacher pray over the intercom and not being allowed to pray at all are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Not
you know
being
what I would
led in prayer for every student throughout the school is not the same as any student who wants to pray being allowed to go and do so when they so need to do so.
Right. And I would even... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just saying, as far as I'm concerned, any student who wants to pray during the school day and is not going to disrupt either his own or anyone else's class time by so doing should be welcome to do so. And in fact, I would be okay with if the teacher wants to do so in private during the school day, like maybe in, like a break
The kids
room
are
or
all
something.
taking a test. I'm gonna sit behind and pray to God they pass.
Yeah, then you know what? That's fine. But when someone gets up and starts using their own religious views, whatever they are, and in fact, I would also say
it's an imposition.
Anyone who's going to impose that it's not okay to pray in a non-disruptive manner,
they'd be.
I would also oppose that. Yeah,
yes.
That's not okay. That's not your business. Yeah. Leave it alone.
So let's say that someone was like, you know what, we need to have prayer in school. I think there's an easy way to do it. Have a section where it's like, hey, 5 minutes of personal quiet time. But you'd have to make sure like there's mats or something like that.
You could, if you take the gym and you open the school up like 20 minutes early for all of the kids to come in who choose to go in to be led in a general prayer, that should be fine.
Not even
it
that.
Shouldn't be imposed.
I think it should just, if they want it, it could just be quiet personal time. Because, like, for example, I could meditate, and I would kill for the chance to meditate, like, halfway through a stressful class. Awesome. I'd take that.
Especially, like, if it was in the middle of the day instead of at the beginning of the day. If there was, like, a lunch period time frame during a recess that is just, like, just go sit in the corner and shut up.
Yeah, I honestly, too, and I'm tentative on this because I haven't really thought too much about it, but I wouldn't even really have a problem if I knew, like, you guys remember the plot. I'm sure you've heard at least of the plot of God's Not Dead 2, Cinematic Masterpiece by Pureflip, where the teacher talks about how she, like, is into Jesus and stuff like that. And then, like, the ACA, like, totally takes her, ACA? Am I right on that?
I think it was ACLU.
ACLU. That's the one. They take her ass to court. And I'm like, no one would ever do that. One, first of all. Second of all, there's almost a little bit of a benefit to knowing your professor or your teacher's positions, because then you know the bias that they have. You know, I mean, it
depends on the grade. I would say it depends on the age of the students.
It depends on the age. I agree wholeheartedly. And also it depends on the class.
Yeah. Like if you're going to a religious class or you're going to a biology class, it's beneficial to know if your teacher's a young Earth creationist trying to teach you biology.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not saying that it should be something that is like forced to be transparent. I'm just saying I wouldn't have a problem if one of my teachers or professors was like, "This is what I think about this," because then I'm like,
appropriate way.
Yeah,
I had an English teacher that did that in grade 11. My grade 10 science teacher was a Christian, though didn't specify young Earth creation or whatever. That was just my science teacher said they were a Christian in general. And they were great. They were fantastic people. They did good jobs. They were good teachers. They didn't impose it. Once in a while, the English teacher got into a little bit ranty, but it was usually in relation to the literature. So if the literature was symbolic, then they might go on a little bit of a tirade to it, but it wasn't really a problem. It was still educational and accurate.
It's almost like if you're not forcing your beliefs on anyone, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Wow. Imagine.
Go figure. I think that sums that one up. Yeah.
Well, one thing is, in high school, I went to a Catholic school, and while there was a class on Catholic theology, at no point was anyone encouraged to go and go take confirmation or something or convert. And in fact, not all of the teachers at the Catholic school were Catholic, and not all of them were even religious. And I knew with some certainty at least a few of them that weren't Catholic at all, and at least one of them who wasn't religious at all. And the school didn't even not hire them. They said you couldn't teach the theology class, which that's fair. If you want someone to teach Catholic theology, should probably, in the Catholic school, it should probably be a Catholic.
Fair enough, yes.
That's fair.
Yeah, and the student body had a large portion of either non-Catholic, other kinds of Christians. There were a number of Orthodox Christians, Protestants. There were actually a significantly large number of either practicing or nominal Buddhists in the student body. So, because
I've got to test, is my mic working?
It's working.
Did you want to hit up Charles?
I muted myself and then I promptly knocked my microphone off of my desk. So we good.
Perfect. Did you, Unholy Roast, did you want to hit up Charles' question? Or what they said in the chat? Sorry, not question.
Oh, yeah. So Charles Starbuck said, you know that the person that wrote this question, oh no, another chat, would lose their shit if that prayer included a rug or I don't know how to pronounce that because I'm a terrible human being. Yarmulke. Okay, that's what I figured. I was like, I don't trust myself.
Every time I see Jewish terms written out, I'm like, bullshit. That's the way that's pronounced. Kawasa5 says, so it's not really freedom of prayer they want, it's the group ceremony as a declaration of dominance they really want. Kinda.
Yeah.
And to some extent.
Yeah. Alright, next question. Question 64. Should a teacher be fired for talking about God in their class?
Are they preaching instead of teaching math?
We just kind of covered this. I mean, there are totally venues for where that's appropriate, or at least okay. But if you're coming up there and proselytizing to your classroom, probably not.
Yeah. Now, once again, it's almost like there's nuance.
Yeah, it's
weird.
A teacher shouldn't. The thing is that you're going to run into ramifications. If a teacher is forcing their own religion on students, that's a problem, because not every student is going to be of that religion. So should a teacher be fired for talking about Allah in class?
Same thing. If you're trying to proselytize.
Exactly. I'm just flipping this question back on them. If I change God that is, does this person care all of a sudden? Is that a problem for them?
Actually, it might be. I do know some Christians who would prefer that people simply not know about Islam because they object to it that strongly, which I think is stupid.
But that's the whole thing, is that you have to treat everything the same, and usually the easiest way to do that is just to not include.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Are we ready for the next question?
For the next one. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Same answer. Oh my god.
100. Okay, I'm gonna report this person for false advertising. This is a lie right here. This 100 questions for atheists is just a straight up lie.
This is like the question equivalent of the bags of chips that are full that much and the bag's fucking gigantic.
Yeah, at least there's a reason for that.
It's just
yes.
Oh, hey, they asked the question.
Same answer.
They have some self-awareness.
I would want to know their answer to this question.
I would too.
Right.
But, yeah. Where's the evidence that they shouldn't be? If the answer to the last one was no, why is Muhammad okay but Jesus isn't? It wasn't no. Moving on.
Yeah.
Can I just ask this person, why do you hate Muhammad?
Why do you hate Muhammad?
What?
Question 68. Why do you want to censor opinions that you disagree with?
When people comment with dissenting comments in my comment section, I tend to pin them. I do the opposite.
So do I sometimes.
I
have one pinned on one of mine. I think it was on the Matt Dillahunty one. Somebody said that Chesh is a thought, and I pinned it.
Nice.
I don't. Here's the thing with this one. There are atheist groups who censor dissenting opinions, who censor conversation. There are Christian groups who do that. There are Muslim groups who do that. There are political groups that do that, or the Donald does that all the time on Reddit. There are groups that do this, but those are groups that is not the public space. That is not school. Right. That is not, this is not the public square. Those things should not be censored in that way.
Exactly. And I've heard people say before, well, I wouldn't want to make response videos to a flat earther or to a young earth creationist because I don't want to show that, to even give the idea that their ideas are valid. But the thing is, I think that the opposing opinions and ideas should always be talked about and they should be reviewed, because hopefully with talking about them, we can point out the flaws, or at least have a good discussion.
I'm so with you on that.
I think there are some that have a time and a place. There are some that you kind of just shouldn't bother with However, it's more of an issue of doing it and doing it right, rather than it's not usually whether or not the person should be heard or shouldn't be heard. It's just a matter of that they're heard in the right setting with the proper pushback. So if you're going to go into like Holocaust denialism, then you need to address, if you're going to do it, you need to do it in such a specific and strict manner so that way you don't end up with a complete garbage shit show.
Well, and the thing is that there is, in some ways, especially when it comes to things that impact individual rights, like
violence and hate speech and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly, and like so-called like race realists or like tradcons or whatever, like coming on and pushing pushing a dialogue that could potentially harm someone's access to rights. Then it's somewhat of a different story. But as far as discussing paradigms, I think that's a bit different.
Yeah. It's a gradient, right? It's a gradient of how you need to approach the issue. Is it easy for us to have this kind of conversation? Yeah. Can you bring a Christian on to talk about Christian ideals? Most of the time, yeah, you're not really going to be doing too much harm to have those conversations. But if you start bringing on somebody who is attracted to children, talking about how they may or may not be able to control that and how should that be treated moving forward, now you've got a very dangerous idea or precedent being pushed or set that you need to be very, very cautious about how it's approached, how it's addressed, how what pushback is given, what is deemed appropriate. You need to be prepared, and you need to be in the right setting for that. You run into problems like Modern Day Debate had that problem a couple days ago. They ended up with a whole shitload of Nazis in their chat. Was like Non Sequitur ran in that issue when they accidentally booked two white supremacists, not realizing that they were both going to stop talking about the topic and both talk about how they agreed about white separatism.
No.
Like there's you have to be cautious and be careful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have conversations about this. It's about making sure that gradient is met for whatever topic you're talking about.
Yeah, actually, and you have to be wary of dog whistles too.
Yes.
So the precautions that are taken should be proportionate to the danger of the idea,
potential harm. Yes. Yeah.
Well, one thing I would actually like to hear is
it doesn't mean don't. It doesn't mean shut it all down every single time. It means that if you're going to do it, be aware and be cautious.
One thing that I might like to hear as a conversation, though, honestly, is between white supremacists and separatist Afrocentrists, because basically they have the same ideas as to what should happen.
They were ethno-nationalists, or however you say that. They were,
when you ask
them
what the
black
ethnicity
supremacists or something. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that's the thing is when you listen to the black ethno-nationalists and the white supremacists, basically their visions are essentially the same. They're like, oh, let's have separate countries. This is the country for just the white people, and this is the country for just the black people. And it's like, so what do you guys really disagree on? Which one of you is smarter? Because you have the same ideas. Why are we taking either of you seriously?
There is potential to have good conversation there, but... Sorry?
Where do I go as a ghost in those two countries? Come on.
Ghosts aren't subject to borders.
Oh, there you go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yes.
So yeah, one was a black supremacist, and they were talking about ethno states. One of them was black, and the other one was Jeff.
I think I vaguely remember this episode, but it's been such a long time.
I remember the Jeff guy. But he's on Modern Day, or not. He's on Drunken Peasants. Not on Drunken Peasants. They talk about him on Drunken Peasants, and they get Jeff Holiday to do a really great impression.
Yeah, I think
good old Jeff Holiday.
To say that anytime supremacy is in the title of a descriptor for a
running
person,
into trouble,
it probably doesn't. It's not boding well for them, right?
I mean, I'm a well-known Deuterostone supremacist, so.
Oh, true. Yeah, true.
Yeah, get out of here, snails.
Ooh. Yeah, see, like I said, it's a gradient. It depends, and it doesn't mean that we're not trying to shut down somebody who just disagrees. It's a matter of how dangerous or is whatever dogma you're trying to push or whatever ideal you're trying to push. Like not everything is equal, not every topic is equal, so some things need to be handled with, like metals,
nuance.
Like chemicals. Not all chemicals you can just put on your hands, all right?
I like to wash mine with mercury.
Don't drop the soap. All right. Question 69, Ayo. This is the question we're going to end on because it's 69. It has to be. Why do you repeat information from scientists when you have no idea what you are talking about?
This is the classic. This is the classic fucking paradigm that we see from young Earth creationists, where everyone is equally an expert on everything, which is why they've got like their handful of PhDs that they trot out for whatever topic that they're covering of the day. You know, expertise means nothing to them.
Right.
Degrees mean nothing. Experience means nothing. And so therefore, if a scientist says something, well, you know, Billy Bob Joe down the street who works in accounting is just as you know, knowledgeable about whatever astronomy as, you know, fucking like actual astronomists. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
I look at. Oh, go ahead. Unholy roast. Sorry.
Thank you. That's the thing, is that you'll hear people go, "Oh, well, that's just an argument from authority." Cool, but this like person that I'm talking about that said this is an astronomer. That's what they've done. They're an expert in their field.
Well, that's just
And especially-
that's not what the fallacy is. The fallacy is when you're arguing from authority that, oh well, the Pope said it, therefore it must be true. Not this scientist said it,
Exactly.
and here's the citation of the research that they did.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the thing I'm bringing up, is that it's not an argument from authority
It's
if you
not.
actually have an authority.
And this would be like having, you know, a stomach issue, and instead of going to like a gastroenterologist or whatever, and whatever, I'm saying that wrong, but instead of going to the gastro doc, you just go to a general practice doc, right?
No, it's
Like,
like,
you're
it's
not-
like if you're talking about astronomy and you go to an astrologer.
yeah.
It's like if
my-
you don't vaccinate your kids because you spent 20 minutes on Google and think you know more than the entire
Oh my
medical
goodness.
field.
Oh no.
We can't talk too much about that. I'll start to get angry.
Don't make the dinosaur
so
angry.
for me, it's sort of like let's say you start taking a class in Russian. You don't speak any Russian. Why you don't know what you're talking about in Russian class? So why do you listen to the teacher? You don't know what they're talking about either. Well, it's because you know they're the ones who do know what they're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're the ones who speak Russian.
Not
that
everybody can know
scientist-
everything.
Right. That scientist is the one who knows about astronomy or herpetology or seismology or whatever. I don't.
No,
They
yeah.
do.
And I think
Exactly.
even further is to make reference to what is the consensus among scientists, because obviously you can have scientists that are completely off from the rest of the scientific community on any given position. But if you're like, hey, this is the consensus about this thing from all of the experts, you're going to be way more solid than, well, Kent Hovind said.
Oh my god. And you know the thing is about it too is that you get so much pushback in that yeah. You get so much pushback in that realm where people were, you know, the classic one is well, you know, people were geocentrists and flat earthers before, you know, Galileo came along and changed the opinion. Maybe the consensus is wrong. And it's like, yeah, but the cool thing about consensus is that when you overturn something, it's usually because you have a wealth of data, not a blind assertion.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this was an interesting set of how many questions were there really? Like 15? Maybe.
we got through them. We got through them faster, so there's that. We actually
did.
That's because a lot of them we're not going to rehash it. We just have to move on.
We got a lot
Well,
of
yeah.
doubles on this one.
Can I just say, though,
I think there was a triple in there.
There was.
I think there was.
It
So
was
my
Muhammad,
prediction,
Jesus,
though,
and God all in school.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
my
yeah.
goodness.
so
I'm
my
surprised you didn't
prediction,
follow up with Buddha. Sorry.
the next part's going to be longer, I can almost guarantee you.
You think so?
If we're
We do-
all going to be drinking,
Oh yeah. That's a good point.
Oh god.
Inkboy said, and I told him to put it back because he retracted the message, and I was like, "You put that back."
It
Inkboy
was
said,
so
when
good.
it's like when you talk about sex when you're an incel.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Oh god, incels. Please.
I think
Are any of
that-
these questions going to be about incels? Because I kind of hope not.
No, thank
probably
God.
not. I don't think
This
so.
isn't the Jesse Lee Peterson stream, you know. We're
Hour.
dealing with something a little less
Maybe
blatantly.
one day we'll get there. But we made it all the way to 69. We made it all the way to 69. We're
Nice.
gonna do the last hunk
That's the
next
important
time.
thing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and We made pretty good time, I think. And if we start getting triples again like that, I mean, maybe they're running out of questions. Like I said, it's really front loaded.
It is, yeah.
Like the more difficult, more complex, accidentally good questions all at the beginning, and now they're just kind of like grasping for questions a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I like to think that maybe I would either, if I wanted to make a list of questions for, say, creationists or something, I would either have 100 better questions, or I would just pick a smaller number.
Oh God, that would actually be kind of fun to do a bunch of questions for creationists. I wonder who would answer. Hopefully we would get the classic gang responding on that.
That'd be
Maybe.
nice. I'm just linking this in the chat because, again, they did ask for people to answer the questions. So, I mean, you can send them this video and the last video if you would like. You can also let them know by answering the questions yourself. And they've actually, some people have gone and asked and actually answered, and reading through some of those is pretty interesting. And props for you guys who've actually gone over to take them seriously and actually answer some of their questions.
Oh, good. I hadn't checked, but it's good to know. I'm gonna have to check that out and see what's in the comments. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
you were gonna say, sorry.
So Erica, does that mean that we're gonna start working on a list of 100 questions?
Oh God, we almost need to. I mean, like the ultimate list. The only problem is if you put a list out there like that, the number of potential responses, and then you know how petty I am, the number of potential response videos that would have to exist.
That's a good idea. Way to like perpetuate content.
Yeah, that just means you won't run out of stuff to talk about for years.
I feel like you would just need an Easter egg somewhere in there of why do you hate blank?
That would,
but have it be really dumb, like really really dumb.
Why do you? I think a why do you hate Charles Darwin might actually be a decent question because a lot of them seem to.
That's true.
Why do you hate Charles Darwin and not? Oh no, what was the other guy?
Wallace.
Alfred Russel Wallace.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Yep. Well, so it really is bizarre with the Darwin thing. Like in almost every debate, Kent Hovind goes on this fictionalized biography of Charles Darwin as part of his opener, even though
Charlie Darwin.
Even though the debate almost never has anything to do with Darwin, and it's completely irrelevant, and he's factually inaccurate, and it's like, why are you bothering? You're just wasting your own time.
Why do you hate logic? Why do you hate math?
Well, I remember a long time ago there was a King Crocoduck versus Kent Hovind.
So that's a triad. That's a triad.
The non sequitur one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was glorious because Kent Hovind could not follow his script anymore because Crocoduck was like, no, I do physics stuff. We're not touching that. Go back.
Yeah, Crocoduck did such a good job keeping him on point.
That's
how you beat Kent, right? It's just get him off script.
It's not just Kent though. I think that's creationists in general. They all have certain things they want to go to. They want to go to the origin of life. They want to go to some of them. They want to go to genetic entropy or something like that. And if that's not what the topic is about, you can't let them go there. And if you don't, they will not know what to talk about because their talking points are very specific for each of them.
Also, if you guys are interested, I just found the person who made this video's Twitter. So if you wanted to get any clarification on any of these questions, you might be able to ask them there. Maybe they'll answer.
Just in case you guys... This is probably random to share, but I'm looking at a groundhog in my backyard right now, like a legitimate large groundhog, just like fucking walking around in my backyard.
Just hanging out.
Are you sure it's not a marmot?
I'm sure it's not a marmot. It is far too chunky to be a marmot. Okay. It's quite large.
Don't worry, Heat Shield. We're gonna get to the flat Earth one. Once this one is over, the next one, they actually also have a flat Earth video. So we're gonna do their flat Earth. There's 100 questions for people who think the Earth is round.
And if you're a fan of Kent with Bent, which you should be, you should check that one out.
I've confirmed Bent Hovind. I've confirmed Atom. Also on YouTube goes by Truth Through Science and Fight the Flat Earth.
Awesome.
That's going to be a good panel. So
we're just going to be scheduling after this. So once we're done this one, we'll look to schedule the next crossover series episode. What? Couple episodes? Trilogies? Maybe we'll just make them all trilogies.
Serial. It's a serial. Go with a serial because when the original Doctor Who way
Cinnamon
back in
Toast
the 60s,
Crunch.
Well, no, because if you look back at the serial with an S, right? So back in Doctor Who, they would have 4 or 5 episodes that would tell a contained story. and then we just go to another 4 or 5 episodes, and each of those was a serial within the whole overall series of that 1 year's worth of episodes. So I would call them a series or a serial.
Well, Dapper, what do you got coming up?
Let's see. I am doing nothing else today because the premiere that I was supposed to have today, I set the wrong date and it premiered yesterday. So if you didn't catch my Star Trek video because you thought it was going to premiere today, it's up on my channel. Just go watch it. It's fun. I talk about Darmok, one of the more popular episodes of The Next Generation. That was a request from Benthoven. Let's see. Saturday, I'm going to be on 2 shows. I'm going to be on my own show with Eric Viertaler on 92. I always forget the numbers. Because he and his friend are debating Kent Hovind tomorrow on, I believe, Kent Hovind's channel. So they are going to be on for an after show with me on, or no, I think it's today. It's today on Kent Hovind's channel. I'm not sure when though, honestly.
That's exciting.
Yeah, but then Saturday they're going to be on with me for a after show. I'm also going to be on Talking Time with Caffeine. I think, Eric, are you going to be on there for that?
What day is that? Is that this Saturday?
Yeah.
That's a good segue. Erica, what are you up to?
Yeah, there you go.
It really does depend. My YouTube presence is going to be a bit down for the next week. I'm going to visit the old BF down in Memphis. We've both been under immense quarantine, so it's all on the level. Don't worry, folks. But yeah, I'm gonna go down and see him and see what's up. So I'm not gonna be able to do quite as much YouTube stuff over the next week, but I am hoping to get out a Genesis apologetics video and then also a
don't sound
video.
too excited.
Yeah, I honestly I got it about halfway done, and at one point I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I need a break. And so I got up and I still have to finish. I'm hoping to finish that tonight so I can have 2 things released next week in my absence. But and
don't
then
forget there's a surprise coming at the end of the stream, by the way, guys.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, please get to the surprise.
Well, we have to get to Unholy Roast too.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's my cue for Unholy Roast to go so we can see the surprise.
Well, mine'll be quick because I actually barely finished up my semester, so I was giving myself a little bit of break, but I have 2 interviews done. I'm going to start uploading them probably in the next couple days of Coronaverse, just about different people's experiences during this time, and try and make people feel less alone and like they have a little bit of control in their life.
If you have anybody you want to talk to, hit me up. I have some decent connections, so if you have anybody that you want to get, let me know, and I'll see if I can hook you up a little bit.
I might, because I'm honestly just going to be trying to get a variety of different people.
Sweet.
And just try and make the world a little bit of a better place.
Yeah, awesome. I will be back on Monday. I may be back with a video that will 100% not have a clickbait title.
It better say not clickbait in the title.
It will absolutely say not clickbait. It'll say 100% not clickbait in the title, provided it fits.
With about 100 exclamation marks and full caps,
As much as possible, absolutely. So I may do that before Monday. I'm not going to tell you what it is, and I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to be doing, because that would totally ruin the 100% not clickbait part. And then on Monday, I'll be back, of course, because Caffeine Corner. And this is the surprise.
Now I'm going to have to watch the stream, because I can't see it.
Oh, I can't see it either. Wait.
I have the live feed up.
Special thanks to Helios for sending me this glorious, quite heavy present. So I guess you guys can all guess what's going to be happening sometime in the future. The near future.
I can't
hopefully.
yet.
I can't see it yet. Wait, okay, we're
Oh no.
maybe.
Oh no. I'm so excited.
Oh, yay.
Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
Look at that.
This is gonna be a good time.
Helios 575. That's like an investment in a number of people, because I guarantee you, Chesh isn't going to use those by yourself.
I'm
gonna be using this all over the place. One of the things that I did, I kind of wrecked Dapper's D&D session that he was playing privately for the players.
Did you?
Only for the players, not for him. Because he says, oh, they're fighting like golem type things in this Egyptian-styled dungeon, but they don't know that they're gonna have to be fighting mummies soon with Money Rop, and that'll be a problem. And I just said, are the mummies inside the golems? And he's like, they are now!
Brilliant.
Yep. Yeah, that's the dangerous thing. If I'm running a game, which does happen, and you give me cool ideas, there's a fair chance I'm just gonna take it.
So if anybody can't see what this is the core books for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So this is the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeons Master's Guide. I also had somebody who was kind enough about a week or two ago to send me Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So I am actually almost caught up to my original book collection.
Yeah.
I'm only missing
I think
2.
we could get a community game of D&D together in like a weekend if we had to.
Easily. I love D&D.
I want that to happen because I've never played and I've always wanted to.
Oh.
D&D is fun as hell, dude. It is so fun.
Yeah.
So,
And actually,
sorry.
I was gonna say, Erica and I and a few other people, TD Lane, who's in the chat among them, are working on trying to get another role-playing game started up. We're currently trying to find someone to run it so it doesn't have to be me, because I've been running every game I've been in for like the past decade and a half.
Aww.
And I kind of need a break. So I'm hoping someone else can run it. Yeah, basically. I'm just like, can I just sit and roll dice for a little bit and not have to think of everything?
What's probably going to end up happening, because I knew as soon as I announced that I had these, what's probably going to end up happening is I'll probably have one that I'll stream, and then the rest I'll just DM a bunch of smaller games in the background. That'll probably be what happens.
That sounds cool.
That's a good plan.
There'll probably be one for like newer players where I'll bring in 1 or 2 experienced players and then like 3 newbies. And then like 1 or 2 of those, depending on how many new people want to learn how to play, and then I'll probably just be on Discord. We'll do it that way, just to help people learn how to play if they want to play and run their own games. I do have somebody who did Once Upon a Time volunteer some time. I don't know if they would still be interested, but I'm still willing to do that, is to teach people how to DM if they want to DM.
I can help with that too.
Sit in on stuff like that. So we'll get that running and get that rolling for people. It'll mostly be on my Discord, so hit me up on Discord if you want to get into that kind of stuff. But it's going to be slow going at the beginning. Fair warning. Yeah. I have this now. I have to finish a little bit of theory crafting. Once that's finished, then we'll look at who we're going to bring on to stream. And then I just don't want people to think that if you didn't get invited to do the stream one, that you're not going to get to play. I would also love to bring in like rotating people.
Chesh, I still think we should reverse the D&D lore for gnomes and goblins, and say that the goblins are respected, if eccentric, inventors and miners, and the gnolls are vicious cannibalistic monsters that live in caves.
The
gnomes, the gnomes.
I think it would be fun, like if you have deep gnomes doing that, but then you've also got like multiple kinds of goblins. So you have some goblins that lived in cities, but some goblins that live in like swamps and shit.
As long as everyone hates the garden gnomes.
Everyone hates the garden gnomes. I think garden gnomes are a myth and a legend, but it's said that they make claims and they make promises, but they'll never keep them.
I have heard that about garden gnomes, especially those of the discount variety.
Very few have ever seen one in person, but they're said to appear where they think they'll be popular.
Sorry. Erica, are you lost on this one?
Am I lost on the garden gnome thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I know of garden gnomes. I know of the gnome race.
Yeah, that's.
Well, we'll explain to her off stream. Well, once we finish just the last little bit of wrap up here, we will start working on scheduling the next one. So hopefully that'll be sometime next week. But I will let you guys know as soon as I do.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.